So, hello to the person who's watching. We are going to have a debate between Erik Carlberg and Romeo Lewis. That's going to be starting in 7 minutes' time. So, Erik is actually here and he's waiting. We're just waiting for Romeo to turn up, and then when he does, we will get cracking. But yeah, I am Kieren Brown. I'm here in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. It is baking hot, and I do mean baking, but we're excited to do this. We are excited. Aha, okay. You know that. Hello, Mr. Erik Carlberg. Hello.
What's up? I see
Hello.
how someone says Erik Carlberg seems like an egotistical boob. Those are the types of comments you don't even respond to. Just like the dude called me an egotistical boob on the internet. Oh, taking him seriously.
And that's not the kind of insult you tend to hear a lot. Like I couldn't think of the last time I've heard someone call someone a boob.
Yeah, you know? Right.
Anyway, all right, let's let Mr. Romeo in now. Okay. Well, I'm trying to let Romeo in, but it's not letting me. Hold on.
Oh man, I literally just hit publish yesterday on Ingram Spark and Amazon. So let's see in the next 24 to 72 hours, it's got to propagate.
Oh, I see the vortex of love.
The vortex of love. Yeah.
Nice.
I guess Ingram Spark and Amazon can be a little bit wonky, but this thing is literally going to be available for purchase in a matter of days now. So I'm stoked.
All right. So while we're waiting for Mr. Romeo to get on board, how about you explain exactly what the vortex of love is?
Oh man, the vortex of love is a customizable super system for attracting your ideal woman. It is the everything book on game. And I say everything book tentatively because perhaps knowledge is infinite. I can't even imagine what kind of books are going to be written in the future, but I sought to write the most comprehensive book on the game I possibly could. This was not meant to be a quick, easy, dirty, 15 tips type of book. This is like a deep read. It rewards patience. It rewards perseverance. And I wanted to write the stairway to heaven of books on the game, like something where people are like, dude, this book is something I'm going to revisit for years. This is an epic book. That's what the vortex of love is. It explains my customizable super system. There's a bunch of detail to get into on that one. I would love to do that sometime with you. An interview with you would be great, man. We had a really fun interview last time, man.
Yeah, we really did. So what about this book makes it, let's say, unique, unusual, groundbreaking, etc.?
So I think most dating advice, and I applaud anybody who has the balls to throw their hat in the ring and say, hey, I can teach you how to get better with women. That takes guts, right? And you don't have to have all the answers, right, to help somebody. Sometimes dating advice is just a collection of raw material. But what the Vortex has done, I've synthesized many different schools of thought into an overarching system that kind of contains the schools of technical game, natural game, inner game, outer game, direct game, indirect game. Most dating advice is a collection of tactics and techniques, but there's no structure. You're just throwing tactics and techniques whimsically, right? Then you have value-based or concept-based dating advice where they give you really cool concepts and ideas, but there's nothing practical and tactical about it, right? The very few people that do actually have systems, like Mystery, my good friend, business partner, my wingman, Mystery, he has a system, the M3 model, a linear step-by-step system. The vortex of love is actually a dynamic, rearrangeable system. So it allows for flexibility and adaptability in real time, because social interactions are not linear, right? Sometimes you want to build attraction with the girl and she's not receptive to attraction building. Well, what do? Do you just continue to try to build attraction with her? Do you disengage and then re-engage later? Or do you shift into what I call element 2 mode, where you're not being so directly attraction building with her, right? So the vortex can be used like a linear step-by-step system. Once you understand the key frameworks of it, 6 or 7 overarching frameworks, you can create linear step-by-step systems with it if you want to. But once you understand it, really, it operates intuitively. It operates kind of automatically. You can use it heuristically in the moment. I'm super excited about it, man. There's an incredible amount of brain power and time and energy that went into this, not to mention the time that I've spent in the game, which is 20 years. You know what I mean? I've been teaching this for like 16, 17 years now. I've been in the game for 20 years. So this is truly my life's work I'm holding in my hand right now. This is my greatest accomplishment personally and professionally right here.
All right. Who would you say is the target audience for that book? The reason why I ask is because I look at that and I think, all right, I am pretty sure everything you have outlined in this book. Oh, hold on. Romeo's calling me. I think he's having trouble getting on board.
No worries.
Hello? Hey, are you having trouble getting on the stream? Well, I'm using Safari. Like, which one are you using? I don't know, man, like Google Chrome or something. Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, the browser's blocked his microphone and camera, so he's going to try different browsers. Anyway, So what I was thinking is, everything you said about this book, I totally believe that all of the information there is incredibly valuable, and that if followed to the letter would absolutely transform a man's dating life. I don't doubt that that's true. I look at the size of that book and I look at everything you said, and it feels like overwhelming.
Yes.
It feels very overwhelming, and it feels like it's like learning a language. Like I'm learning Portuguese right now, and there's a gazillion different things to learn. So with me now, like my journey with games, like I reached a point where at first I was kind of aligned with you in that I wanted to be as technical as possible and to know everything I needed to know. Then I reached a point where I stopped caring. I was like, you know what? The main thing is to just fucking believe in myself, have balls, and just go for it. And that's all I can really be bothered to do now. I don't have the mental energy to be like, no. So I'm asking, like, who's your audience?
I hear you completely, man. So that's the cool thing about the Vortex is it is user friendly. And what I mean by that is you can read it and learn it and ingrain all the different terms and concepts and, get deep into the weeds if you want to, or you can learn it and just sort of use the concepts that resonate with you. Because some people, they just want to have solid inner game and just kind of let it rip. See, you're somebody who has a bit of natural social skill, right? Whether you've learned this over time or not, I can't tell. It seems pretty natural to me. Okay. So for somebody like you, high level frames, believing in yourself, going for it, that may be all you need to have a pleasant journey, right? Some guys need the technicalities because their brain doesn't operate the same. They need that nitty gritty structure. Some guys want that nitty gritty structure because they enjoy it. They enjoy the technicalities of the game. So part of my work of writing this was, how do I take a mass quantity of information and some highly technical stuff and make it actually feel easy and learnable? So you're looking at this and you're thinking, man, this is probably a challenging read. It is a challenging read. If you try to read it too fast, if you try to just skim it for information, if you slow down and read it though, and really process it and use your creative muscles, it is actually really palatable. I've had many people read it now. I've had many pre-readers read it, and they all said, man, this book does a nice job of kind of warming you up, easing you into the more advanced stuff. There are a few chapters that are a little bit challenging. I'll say that. There are a couple of chapters that it's like, you got to really slow it down, right? But all in all, this is something that it's for everybody. It's for the beginner, for the new guy. It's for the intermediate. It's for the advanced practitioner of the game. It's for guys of all different skill level.
All right. Well, lovely. So yeah, Romeo, you're here now, so that's absolutely amazing. I guess we can get started. We can get cracking with this. So yeah, so we are here. We got Romeo Lewis of Succeeded with Dating. We have got Mr. Erik Carlberg of datingcoachformen.com. And we're going to have a debate, which is essentially about energy game versus strategic structural game. Which is best, which is worst, and why? So essentially, guys, I mean, thank you guys for being here. Let's get cracking. Let's get going. Who would like to go first?
I'll give it to Erik. Erik, you can go first, bro.
You want me to go first? All right. So we jumping right into the topic. Do you want me to do a quick intro and say who I am and my background?
Yeah. Do an intro.
We'll do a quick intro. Yeah. So I got into technical game, if you will, as in studying the game, reading books, watching videos, trying to incorporate proven concepts used by other guys. I got into trying to do that 20 years ago at the age of about 23 years old. I discovered the game, as we say, right?
Hold on, quick thing. Romeo, can you mute yourself while he's talking? I think I'm hearing like some feedback or something.
Yeah, you got some background noise, brother. So yeah, I discovered this stuff like 20 years ago, right around the time The Pickup Artist was coming out, the VH1 reality show, the book The Game by Neil Strauss. And I got sucked into this stuff, right? I had a little bit of a natural background growing up. I hung out with the social people, the popular crowd in high school a bit. I kind of socialized with everybody though. I didn't really fit in one spot, but I played sports. I went to parties. I wasn't the best guy with girls growing up, but I was up there. And some of the best guys in my school were my good friends, right? So I have a little bit of a natural background. Nonetheless, I still got sucked into studying the game on a technical level. I didn't want to be another guy that just discovered this stuff and threw a website up 3 or 4 years later. So I trained vigorously for 3, 4, 5 years, started taking my first clients in my mid to late 20s for a small little dating coaching company. I started my own business at age 30. I reached out and partnered up with Mystery, the Mystery from the VH1 show, The Pickup Artist, Mystery as featured in Neil Strauss's best-selling book, The Game. Partnered up with Mystery at about 32, 33 years old. And I've now since been traveling the world with Mystery, doing boot camps, doing online workshops. We've got some cool stuff in the works right now, but yeah, and I am Mystery's official US sponsor and agent. I've run the gauntlet of studying every single type of game out there, not just studying it, but applying it. Inner game, outer game, technical game, natural game, what you like to call energy game, right? This is a collection of overarching concepts that kind of fit together under larger umbrellas. But yeah, man, I've studied this and trained this like a martial art for 20 years. Like a martial artist training martial arts. I have vigorously immersed myself in the game for 20 years. And I'll just throw this last one out there. I wrote a 642-page book on the game. This is going to be ready in a few days. And this is truly my greatest achievement in my life. This is my proudest personal and professional achievement right here.
All right, so Romeo, I bet you have the floor now. So introduce yourself and what you're about.
Yeah, well, first off, I just want to say, like, congratulations on that book, because I can, I've seen how passionate you are about the game. I know that you've worked really hard in this community, in this industry, and you can tell by the look on your face that how much that book means to you. So it's nice to see, brother. So, congratulations on getting it done, because it's a massive achievement.
Thank you.
So I got into the game the same sort of time, actually, around like 20, 21, 22 years ago. It all started for me when my best friend, he was going through a breakup, and I'd went through a breakup myself, and I didn't really know this guy at the time, but I saw him crying his eyes out, and I went over to him and I was like, bro, what's the matter with you? And he's like, my girlfriend, she left me. And I was like, dude, I went through that, I can help you. And I kind of like just grabbed him under my wing. We become really good friends. But his little secret was he wanted his girlfriend back. And this is when this is before like when the internet first hit. You remember the old is it 56K modems that made that horrible noise where it cost you a fortune to go online just to play a game of Red Alert. So one day I'm at a club, I get a phone call from this guy. His name's Charles. His pickup name was Gabriel back in the day. I get a phone call from him and he's like, I found something. And this is on the 3310 Nokia phones. That's how long ago it was. And I'm like, what have you found, dude? And he's like, you need to come home. So I'm like, okay, fuck it, I'll come home. And he's sitting in front of I think he had like a Pentium computer. And he had stumbled onto Attraction Isn't a Choice. Just this random page. So we're reading this stuff and I'm reading it and I'm like, this is amazing. And it's saying stuff like, don't be so nice to girls. Don't be such an average, frustrated chump. And I'm coming from a place a little bit different to your story. Definitely relatable to your story, but from a different angle. I was terrible with women. I wasn't just terrible with women, I was terrible with people. I was terrible with animals. My brother's favorite thing he used to do is scare me with the cat. He used to grab all of his friends and put his cat in front of me and say, look, he can't make eye contact. And I was like, oh, no, get away. That's how socially uncomfortable I was. So that's where I was coming from. Women was just not in my reality. So when I'm reading this text by David D'Angelo, respect, it's resonating with me because it's telling me all the things that I've been trying to do my entire life. And it gives like this cheat code. Instead of being nice to women, maybe go out and poke your tongue at them. Maybe go out and give them the finger. So me and Charles Gibbs, we go to a club called Life in Andover, like these little kids, like all excited. And we start doing this shit with women. And guess what? They start reacting. Women are reacting to me. It's massive. So then we're like, we want to keep hold of this secret. We don't want anybody to find it. And that was kind of my entry into the game. Then I start digging deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I stumble onto pickup artistry, the community, the mystery method, speed seduction, jugular method, everything. And I go at it like what you're describing. I dedicate everything I can to it to become the greatest pickup artist I possibly could. I studied speed seduction for 4 years. I'm running speed seduction patterns and it's working big time. And I'm doing mystery method and I'm opening indirects. And I'm running group sets, merging group sets, getting laid. And this is from a guy who I didn't lose my kissing virginity until I was 23 years of age. So I was coming from a massive deficit. So naturally, you want to help other people. I mean, I helped my friend get over his relationship breakup, help him reconnect with himself, feel happy about himself. So that's naturally my entry into becoming a coach. I started helping guys get their girlfriend back. That was my kind of my niche. But then as my game started to progress, people started to come up to me in the clubs and going, how are you doing that? And then one day I'm in that same club in Andover and across the room, I see all this commotion and there's this guy and I'm like, he knows it. And lo and behold, it's Dean Raymond. So I go over to him and I'm like, do you know about the game? And he's like, yes. And that's it. Boom. We link hands. And that's how we become friends. We both went on that journey together. So I've been coaching for around 20 years because that's when I began coaching. But as a professional coach, I started professionally coaching probably about 15 years ago with my passion, which is live dynamics. And then about 3 years ago, me and Dean really doubled down to really put everything we've learned to help people kind of not go through the same pitfalls that we had to go through. And we launched Succeed in Dating, and that's put me in front of you guys. So yeah, that's a bit about me. Obviously, there's more to it. but it gives you a bit of an introduction where I'm coming from. So thank you.
All right, so both you guys have been at this for more or less the same length of time. We both got completely different viewpoints, mindsets. Let's talk about that. Which is the best way? Is it best to be strategic? Is it best to just let your energy flow? Erik, you go. Why do you believe that your version is the best way?
You know, here's the thing, man. I would be willing to bet if Romeo and I sat down and hashed it out, we would probably find that we're on the same page on a lot more subjects than we differ, right? But those differences are what we're here for, I guess. So I'll say this, you know, I think that first of all, a guy should do whatever is going to take him across the finish line or get him to where he wants to be, right? If it's energy game, if he resonates with Romeo's style, Dean's style, so be it. If he wants to learn the vortex of love, my system, and that's the one for him, so be it. Whatever's going to work for a guy, I think he needs to put it together on his own. But here's what I'll say. From my understanding of energy game, because I debated Dean Rayburn once already on Game Global. I believe
by the way, Romeo, can you mute yourself?
Yeah, we got some background noise there. I believe the debate between me and Dean is out there on Game Global's site, so you can watch that. But my understanding of energy game is that you do a lot of inner game work with a guy, a lot of getting him in the right mindset, getting him in the right emotional state, and then he goes out there and he takes action. It has to also do with being in kind of a peak sexual state. This is how Dean has sort of described it to me. You may have a little different play on it too, Romeo. Maybe you don't game exactly like Dean, even though you guys come from the same school of thought. You guys probably have some differences, right? Me and Mystery have some differences too. But I do believe that emotional state, mindset, this kind of stuff is massively important. There's an entire element dedicated to energy, emotional state, vibe, and so forth in my method. But I believe it's kind of one small sliver, one small slice of a larger picture. And if I'm going to generalize, because that's what this is, kind of, you know, which style of game is going to work generally better, right? Because a lot of different styles of game work. Many different styles of game will get the job done. But generally speaking, what's going to do a more effective job? If you understand tactics, techniques, systems, and you train them into your muscle memory, you're going to go farther. Even if you don't have a good emotional state, even if you don't have a good mindset. Of course, if your emotional state is garbage and your mindset is garbage, a woman is going to detect that, right? But if you have a great mindset and a great emotional state, you can only unlock so much skill. If you're a naturally gifted socializer, right? You get in the right mindset, you get in the right emotional state, certainly those skills are going to shine brighter. But if I'm about to jump in the ring with Conor McGregor, you know, by all means, get me in a good state of mind, pump me up emotionally, right? I've only got a few seconds and I'm going in there to get killed, right? If I have 6 months or 2 years to train, I'm going to want to train some techniques and tactics into my muscle memory. I can still go out there and freestyle. I can still let it rip. But if I only have the mindset and I only have emotional state and reference experiences, I've found that similar to a naturally gifted street fighter who just goes out there and gets into brawls, you're only going to go so far, right? Two equally matched guys, same size, same athleticism, and so forth. Who's going to win in a fight? It's going to be the technically trained fighter that's going to win 9 times out of 10. And technical training also does deal a little bit with the mind and the emotional state of a guy, but it's not the primary focus. In jiu-jitsu, you get on the mat and you start training and you start rolling. Your mindset, your emotional state will come with action, through action. I'd say that's a good start. Yeah.
All right, Romeo, you got a reply?
Yeah, I mean, like when you said, if me and you was to sit down and break bread, we would probably agree. And I'm not here to kind of even really debate with you. I'm here to collaborate with you to see if we can find some kind of understanding. Because I think that's all it's about. I'm on this panel with you guys to try to help whoever's watching. That's what I care about. With pickup technique, so I'll go with, like, you're using martial arts as kind of as a comparison. You're comparing martial arts to pickup arts. The trouble is when you do something like that, martial arts is an object. You're talking about a bag. The bag doesn't hit back. When you're talking about a woman, you're talking about a human being. So you're missing one component that is not contained in martial arts, which is regulation, which is emotional circuitry. So I understand the crossover. I understand why you use that. I mean, it does work. It helps people it gives a framework so we can understand what's actually going on here. But my main kind of, if I am going to debate with you, where I kind of disagree with you is where you grab in a game and state and you use it as a tool, a sliver, a piece. My argument is, in a game, state is all. State is everything. So we use that word state. And when I first got into the game, 7 years, 8 years in, I've slept with, and this is not a boast, because if I could turn it back, I wish I didn't. But I slept with about 300 women. And when I say that now, it makes me go, oh, it's like, yeah. So, but I was good at the game. But the difference was, I'd go out to clubs, especially when YouTube started to fire and all these influencers started to come out, influencers and these pranksters, and they had this natural flair. They had this magic. They had this kind of cadence. They didn't care about what people thought about them. And when I was running game, my best nights were not with when I had a successful pickup. My best nights was the way that I felt when I become embodied, when I was feeling the woman I was speaking to. And I didn't know it at the time, but this is what I loved about the game, and this was game. So the better I got a pickup, that emptiness, that hollowness, that shyness that was always there, never disappeared. I was still suffering from approach anxiety, and my clients were too. And I was looking at the pickup industry, and I was seeing people on the Facebook groups, on the LSS, the London Society, Seduction Society back in the day. And there's people that have been in the game repping these techniques, same as me, over the shoulder. I've done it thousands of times, and I'm good at it. Great repetition, great performance. But something fundamentally wasn't changing. I wasn't free. I still cared. So I had to go deeper into state. So I took that word state and I put it under the microscope and I studied it and I dropped the game. I dropped all the techniques. What is state? And the deeper I went, I learned what it was. And state is regulation. It's regulating your nervous system. So I'm listening to what you're saying. You say state is a sliver. Yes, techniques work. Performance works. Technique gets the results done, but at what cost? Integration only happens for a regulated nervous system. And I believe a lot of people in our industry, the people that we are trying to help, are deregulated. So when they're approaching over the shoulder and they're using these techniques and it works, that's the problem. So the mask that I had built, Romeo, it worked, but there was no connection. And I realized thousands of approaches in, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I turned to my wingman, his name's Craze, and I said, I've had a realization, bro. I've never approached anyone. My ego has. Because I was approaching from ego, I was approaching from performance with great, perfect techniques. I played tennis. I've been playing tennis since I was a little kid. There's 2 ways you can learn to play tennis. You grab someone that's never served a tennis ball, and you say to them, this is how you hold it. This is how you grip the racket. And I want you to throw up. I want you to arch on your back leg. I really want you to lasso, pull over, and you can teach them the perfect technique on how to get that ball with perfect technique. And it works. Or you can grab someone and you can say, this is a tennis racket. This is the ball. Get that ball over that net and get it into that square. And the first thing they're going to say is, what's the technique? And then you get them to try and get it into that ball, into that square 500 times. And then you look at the hand, and they're gripping the racket correctly because they've intuitively learned. Because the self is serving the tennis ball, not the mind, not the ego. So I'm not here to disagree with pickup and performance and teaching people by your own definition how to perform, how to use a mask, how to act. But I think people want coherence. I think people want freedom. And in this kind of day and age, I think there's people out there really suffering. And there are a lot of guys that are embodied, that are connected, like you described. You was already good with women. So if I'm going to talk to you about a visceral, emotional, that guys that are feeling in their body, that's bracing them. They're not suffering from approach anxiety. They are terrified, and every atom in their body is telling them not to approach that girl. And then on the opposite side, every part of them wants to approach the woman. They're in a double bind, and they're using techniques to mask over that. And sometimes it works, especially if they've got a kind of a narcissistic structure. It works. But I'm not here to teach people how to become pickup artists. We developed Energy Game to teach guys how to free themselves and become great with women in dating. And that's why you can put me into any club against the greatest pickup artists in the world and watch what happens. Technique comes from intuition. Babies learn to walk because they get to the end of the room. Get to end of room. They step from the self and they learn how to walk. When I realized that, the level I come to in pickup, I went to the stratosphere. And I think there's a few people in this industry that's happened to. Some of the big guys. I'm not gonna name drop, but the guys that I've got the utmost respect for in this game have been on that similar journey. And I also think when I watch these debates, I see people that you debate with. Lucario, the gentleman in front of me now, the guy that I've seen who approaches women, no technique, no over the shoulder, but has this synergy, this energy. So that's where I'm coming from. So I applaud like the technical aspect of it, and I think it definitely works for some people if they're embodied. But unfortunately, a lot of people in our game, in our industry, they're not. So inner game is certainly not a sliver, and that's what I specialize in. And that's really all I've really got to say. Obviously, there's going to be little spikes that can come from that, but that's basically me. So yeah. Hope that makes sense. Any questions, if I can clear that up, because I know it's a bit of a rant.
So I've got a thought. So essentially, it's like I agree with both of you. By the way, can you guys mute yourselves again? I guess it's you, Romeo. Lots of feedback. All right, cool. So I agree with both of you, and it's like this. In our scene, I basically see like the guys who are watching this video now and the guys who will watch the clips when they're posted online, it's basically pure trauma, right? You don't get into this space of, I want to learn to get better with women because your life's great. You get there because it's fucking horrible and you're miserable. You're unhappy and you want to sort that out. And something I've learned in my time as a coach is that the vast majority of the guys I've worked with really needed self-help more than they needed to learn to meet women. They needed to learn to actually kind of like love themselves. Cool. And then I've learned in my time as a coach, or even prior to that, that when a guy actually does love himself, 95% of the job is actually done, basically. However, when I look at what Erik is talking about here, and Erik used the example of Conor McGregor, and I think consciously or subconsciously he's done that because it's like, what is Conor McGregor? He was the UFC lightweight champion, the greatest fighter on earth at one point, double champion, holding 2 belts, that sort of thing. So when I think of like structured game, it's like if you wanted to be the man who can literally attract any fucking woman on the planet, anyone in any kind of circumstance where there's nothing that will happen and there's nothing that will be said that you won't have a response to, there's no scenario you can find yourself in that you can't transform, then I guess that makes sense. It's like John Jones is like the greatest UFC fighter on earth, and he studies all the tapes of his opponents prior to fighting them, and he downloads every one of their movements into his brain before he fights them, so he knows exactly what the fuck they're going to do. He knows all of their tells, which isn't like, he does freestyle, but also he's got all this info as well. So I guess basically, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this, like it sounds like Erik is basically trying to create the world's greatest seducers known to man. And whereas like Romeo, you're like, I just want guys to actually learn to fucking love themselves and have a great time and be able to live lives of happiness and purpose and not feel like they're isolated from women and be able to comfortably attract, I don't know, 85, 90% of the women they meet. So that's what I'm thinking based on what I'm hearing. I'd like to hear some thoughts.
Yeah, so I think Romeo would probably slightly disagree with this as well, right? Like, I want guys that want to get good at the game to get good at the game. And the guys that want to just, be happy and stop being so afraid and want to feel better, I want that for them as well. And I would assume it's the same for Romeo. Guys that want to get good at the game, Romeo's going to try to get you good. Or if you just want to feel better about yourself, he can do that as well. This is, again, where we get into some of these either or splits, right? But let me just say this. First of all, I don't like to identify as a pickup artist. I very much prefer the term coined by my mentor, Mystery, Venusian artist. A Venusian artist is a practitioner of the arts of love. Martial arts comes from Mars, god of war. Venusian comes from Venus, god of love. So the Venusian arts are the mirror opposite of the martial arts. I'll say this. I don't believe that state is just a small sliver. I want to say this too. Let me just give you a quick compliment, Romeo. You're not who I expected that I was going to be speaking with today. Okay, because most of my guys that I've debated with, they've put on a good show. They've demonstrated a bunch of bravado. They laugh when I use technical terms about the game. They beat their chests and everything. But anybody that really knows the game, that really has studied the game and has watched my debates, I'm sorry, man, these guys are not on my level. Every single guy that I've debated so far, I'll debate them again. I'll debate 2 or 3 of them at a time. What you said, Romeo, was much more nuanced and much more articulate than I was expecting, because I don't really know you. Forgive me. There are a lot of coaches now in the industry. You can't know everybody, right? But let's clarify something really quick. State is not just a small sliver, okay? It depends on the guy. So what I'm about is if a guy wants to learn state-based game, I'm cool with that, but I don't want a guy to become state dependent. Almost nothing in life we should be required to perform if we're only in a good state. We want to be able to do things even when we're not in a great state of mind. There have been many times as well where I did great with a woman. I met a great woman and I wasn't feeling like I was in the greatest state, although being in a good state is ideal. So for me, it's a matter of, do I need to change this guy's mind? When I change his mind, I'm talking about his understanding of this game, understanding of the game, his beliefs, his understanding of female psychology, a whole slew of different things. Sometimes you change a guy's mind, you inform him, and it unlocks his emotional state. It unlocks his body. Sometimes you change his mind, it unlocks his body, and then his emotional state catches up. Some guys, I'm attacking their emotional state. Forget about his mind, forget about his body. How do I get him into a more balanced, integrated emotional state? Once he's in a better emotional state, it frees his mind. He starts thinking more clearly, and then his body follows suit. Or I get him in a good emotional state, his body springs into action, his mindset catches up later. Sometimes I've got to get a guy just going through the motions, and all of a sudden he starts feeling better and thinking more clearly, or he starts using his body and he starts thinking more clearly and then feeling more clearly. So I'm about integration as well. Mind, body, emotional state. Okay. But I don't want a guy to become state dependent. And I'm going to say one more thing about your journey. While I started at a younger age than most guys, I had my first quote unquote experiences at a pretty young age. I don't really want to get into that. I blush a little bit when I talk about this kind of thing, right? But when I discovered game, I went into it face first, just like you did. I studied everything. You mentioned some names in here, different tactics, techniques, systems, schools of thought. I experimented with everything. And similar to you, I reached a point where I said, am I overloading myself with information right now? Am I getting bogged down by the glut, right? So I threw away the tactics. I threw away the techniques and systems and all the technical game. And I just started running state-based game. I was like, oh, this is great. all of the stuff that I had learned seemed to fuse into my way of being much better, much more naturally when I did that. And I gamed like that for several years, where I just went out and I tried to get myself not into just a state, but super state, right? I experimented with all sorts of different frames, emotional states. It got probably pretty weird, to be honest with you, at a certain point, right? I was like, I was like experimenting with these Frankenstein frames, if you will. I talk about that in my book. I call it insane frames in my book. But what eventually happened to me is I came full circle again back to studying the game on a technical level. And I realized that my inability to deal with techniques and tactics and terms and, you know, all of these nuanced breakdowns of the game, it was bothering me and I needed to work it out of my system. But I realized that was actually a problem with me. I should be able to run my game and not be so turned off by the technical side of it. If I'm super turned off by the technical side of it, then I'm paying attention to the negative aspects of a certain coach I don't like. I'm looking at all the reasons why a certain thing doesn't work. So I came full circle back to this fusion of natural and technical game, which is what I believe is kind of the pinnacle of game. If we're going to say, what is the ultimate style of game? Is it just natural game, state? Is it just techniques and systems? I believe there's a fusion of the two, right? But if all you have is natural game, what do you do when your mind goes blank? What do you do when you run out of things to say? When I have technical game and systematic game on my side, if I don't know what to do or say, you know, I can go out there and run a state-based game rather, right? I can go out there and operate on intuition. I can freestyle. But if my mind goes blank, I have systems and techniques to fall back on. Whereas if all you run is natural game, what do you have as a fallback? So I'm going to say a few more things here. State is regulating your nervous system. I like that definition of state better than what most people think state is. Most people think state is, I've got to be almost high on drugs, right? I've got to get myself into an emotional state where I'm virtually high, right? That is not state. And I'm glad that you pointed out that nuance. And I'll say one last thing, and then I'll turn it over to you. I also have had my best nights out when I wasn't thinking. I was in my body. I was connected to the woman emotionally. So integration is for sure what this is all about. Even when studying even when studying technical game, I want this stuff embedded in my muscle memory. I don't want to feel like I'm out there running systems and using tricks and tactics and manipulating and performing, right? I'm all about teaching a guy how to naturally infuse this into his system. It's no different than if you have a product or service that has a lot of value to it, but you don't have an effective way of selling it. Is it manipulative to learn a system to sell your product or service? I mean, I suppose if you're just seducing people into buying some shit that they don't actually need, then yeah, you're using a system in a performative, ego-based, selfish, evil way. But if your goal is to effectively and efficiently communicate the value of your product or service and to feel good while you're doing it, I'm not saying you should feel like shit while you're doing it, but you know, that's not manipulation. That's just smart. That's using technology. This is modern technology for socializing, for game, for courtship.
So I've got a question I wanted to ask. Well, what are you guys' thoughts on vibe and connection with women? Vibing with women, forming connections with them, etc. How does that play into your respective philosophies of game?
Let's
I guess
define
Romeo,
vibing.
you could go.
They said,
Well,
let's define vibing, right?
okay, so yeah, what does vibing mean to you? I mean, I would say vibing is an intangible feeling of you and a woman being in sync with each other, where there's a sexual energy, there's like a hint of flirtation. It's not necessarily overly explicit, but it's there. And there's like a connection and an energy that's formed where you feel like you're in sync. That's how I would define it, but how would you
Yeah,
guys define it?
I would define vibing in a similar way, where it's kind of your ability to demonstrate to a woman that you are energetically, emotionally, psychologically on the same wavelength as her. It's not always done verbally. Often it's done with body language with you being in a good emotional state as well. So it's your ability to reflect and refract back to her that you're on the same energetic wavelength, right? That's kind of how I would define vibing as well.
Yeah.
I would define vibing. What I want to actually do is define it, because the definitions of vibing, I think that's why people get lost, is because it's very hard to define. It's like this vague abstract word, vibing. So if we look at the word vibing, it's obviously coming from vibe. So if we're going to understand vibing, let's understand what is vibe. Let's make the invisible visible. We talk about emotional regulation state. I feel vibe it's an emotional feeling that we feel in the body when we go no mind. It's that place that we go to, we feel it about 2 inches below the belly button. It's a positive, warm feeling. It's that feeling that you feel when Adrian on Rocky 2 goes win, and you get that wash feeling that goes through the body. Or you watch Braveheart, and it goes freedom, and you get that feeling, and it kind of makes you feel cringy. It's the authentic self. That's the vibe. Vibing is where you share that with another person. So you get in contact with that in the club. If you can connect yourself with that vibe and then let it explode with someone else as they walk past, yo, high five. It comes from that feeling in the stomach. You are now vibing with that other person. If they reciprocate, that vibe back to you, you are now vibing with another person. And I think when I look at it like that, it kind of gives it more structure, something to grab. So that's how I look at vibing.
I pulled up vibing really quick from my book. So here's how I defined it in my book, The Vortex of Love. Demonstrating an ability to feel and sync up with a woman's current emotional state with a heavy emphasis on tonality and nonverbal.
Hold on. Romeo, can you mute yourself?
Sorry. So how I define vibing in my book, The Vortex of Love, demonstrating an ability to feel and sync up with a woman's current emotional state with a heavy emphasis on tonality and nonverbal communication. So Mushin, you brought up no mind, Mushin. This is a great concept. This goes back to martial arts theory. I read it in this book called Secret Tactics when I was about 19 or 20 years old. But here's the thing about no mind that martial artists and samurai warriors used to use. They believe to train the body very, very thoroughly, train your techniques and tactics. Then when you're in the moment with the woman, throw your mind away and you will embody that which you trained. We have this saying in jiu-jitsu as well. When you're training, think. When you're rolling, react. So I'm all for the idea of being in that blank state of mind, deeply immersed in the present moment, deeply connected to another person, for sure. Somebody said something in the comments here too about emotional contagion. Emotions tend to be contagious. Emotions are not contagious. They tend to be contagious. But people reject our emotional states all the time. If you've ever been madly in love with a girl and thought, how does she not feel the same thing I'm feeling? You know that emotions are not always contagious. Otherwise, everybody we fell in love with would fall in love with us as well. So people have a tendency to sense and intuit the emotional states of others. It can rub off on other people. If you are in a peak state of mind and somebody is not in a peak state of mind, it can drag them into a better state of mind simply by being in your presence. But even in those cases, some people reject that as well. Some people want to be in a negative state and they want to suffer. And even if you're in a positive state of mind, they're not going to get pulled into it, right? So emotions tend to be contagious, but they're not 100% contagious.
Can I come in on this? Because there's a lot that you said in when you was talking that I've kind of like, I really wanted to comment on, but I've kind of like lost my trail of thought now. So I want to kind of interject.
Oh, it is in debates, man. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, because this is my first debate, by the way. This is the first time I've ever done it, so you have to bear with me. So
no worries.
Appreciate your patience. When you talk about like, if we look at emotional contagion, I think what's missing there is if state is regulation of the nervous system. Let's have a look what actually happens there. When you have a regulated nervous system, the limbic system goes offline, and then we go into the parasympathetic nervous system. So a lot of people in the pickup industry, like you pointed out, Kieren, they're suffering from trauma. They're not happy guys, because if they was, I don't think they'd be trying to learn pickup. They'd probably be married, they'd have relationships. I'm not saying that all people are like that. I'm sure there's a lot of people in this industry that are great with women. They want to learn techniques. They want to learn how to do jiu-jitsu with game. I get that. But I'm talking to a lot of the people in the pickup industry. And I think the reason state is paramount, it is a necessity. Because when I'm saying state, I'm saying a regulated nervous system and the consequences of that. The consequences of a regulated nervous system, the limbic system goes offline. The limbic system is where toxic shame, shyness, deep-rooted insecurities and identity, it's nothing, and it's not in the mind, because you use the word mindset a lot. And also you talk about love. Love is not in the mind. It has nothing to do with mind. Love is authentic expression. And we only have access to authentic expression when the parasympathetic nervous system comes online, because when it comes online, the prefrontal cortex comes online, which then has direct synergy with the authentic self. And it's only with authentic expression we can have relationship, and that's where you find love. So it's interesting where you still kind of lean away, as in, if you haven't got state, we can still use techniques and tactics. I agree, but at what cost? If you are using techniques and tactics from a deregulated nervous system, you're training you're abandoning self. By definition, you abandon self. So you're teaching, if you're not in state, which is regulated nervous system, connection to authentic self, authentic reality, relationship. If you are not in connection with that, don't worry about it, just use a mask. So if we look at something like sociopathic behavior, by definition, this is what we're describing. This is what we're talking about here. And it works. It definitely works, but at what cost? So
yeah,
also before, because I noticed I didn't interrupt you once, and I'm staying present, and I'll always. So with the audience, it's like, especially like I said, when I come onto this panel to speak to you guys, it's really for the audience, because if I can help anyone that's watching, that's all I really care about. It's just like, if you're approaching and you're using all these techniques and you're using all these different ways to skin a cat, and it's pushing you further and further away from authentic expression, it can leave a lot of guys feeling hollow, a lot of guys feeling empty, banging their head against the wall. They're going out, repetition after repetition, approach, over the shoulder. And it takes me to something I realized when I watched. There was years and years ago, I've always been into martial arts myself, like yourself, Erik. I love martial arts. And something interesting I thought about, I remember when I saw Van Damme do the tornado spin kick when I was a kid. And you watch that in Bloodsport or Kickboxer, and you're like, if I go to karate, the teacher will teach me how to do it. So you go into the dojo and you're like, hey, teach me to do the spin kick. Teach me the technique. And he looks you up and down and he goes, well, are you flexible? No, spin kick. Have you got the power in your legs to generate enough force? No. Well, we're going to need to work on those foundations first. And then the irony is, you become hyper flexible, you become powerful in the legs, and you don't even need the technique to do the spin kick, because you fix the core root. So my best game, I can run great speed seduction patterns with conceptualization. I can use the brain. I'm not in state, use a tactic. But my best karate, my best speed seduction, my best methods come from authentic expression. So my argument is, even without techniques, I can run techniques with so much cadence, so much flair, so much flow, just like Christian Bale does, because he's in connection with authentic self. Just like some of the greatest seducers in the planet. And I hear it, I can feel it when I'm speaking to someone, when I see someone. And I don't want to name drop, but I'm only saying it because I recognize lions. So when I listen to someone like Lucario speaking, and I feel game. And I think the trouble is, we're looking at it differently. You've got two games. You've got the game that you love, and I love that game as well, but there's also another game. And that's the game I'm talking about. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I gotta no, and I appreciate you calling me out on interrupting you, because I did interrupt you. You didn't interrupt me.
No, it's fine.
Uh,
It's fine, man. It's fine. I get it. I know. I get what it's like. It's cool, man. It's cool. It's
all
all
good.
good.
It's kind of good that you have that background noise there. It kind of forces us to slow down, right? Because
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I'll get a better setup because I know it's
yeah.
pretty. I'm in a weird place at the moment.
Okay, so training without state, right? You discussed how this. Do you want to mute, by the way?
So yeah.
Oh, good. So you talked about training, training without being in the right state, without being in a regulated state, and how, at what cost are you doing that? Again, it depends on the guy. If I get a guy who's in a terrible state of mind, terrible emotional state, he's dysregulated emotionally, and I start having him doing tactics and techniques, and it's really causing an adverse reaction, it's magnifying the problem, or it's masking the problem, I'm going to change up approaches to helping him. I'm going to do inner game work with him. I do believe in inner game, which is what we're describing right now. Inner game, mindset, emotional state, way of being, expression of the authentic self. And I'll give you this. There are guys in my industry, a lot of them, that use technical game systems and so forth in sociopathic ways. The difference between a sociopath and a guy that just wants to learn technical game is intention. The guy that wants to learn techniques, tactics, systems, structured game, whatever it is, and he has this intention of just taking from other people, taking from women, seducing them, regardless of what their desires and wishes and wants are, that is a sociopath. It is very, very difficult to teach technical game and also make it honest, also make a guy feel good about it, make him feel like this is actually helping magnify his authentic self. That is what I'm about over here, man. Truly. It is a very, very difficult needle to thread. I think very few people have done it. They're either just teaching very broad mindset, emotional way of being type stuff, or they're just teaching lifestyle, become just an amazing, awesome dude that's high value, that has social status and money and drives cool cars and, gets his grind on, right? Like gym bros and shit. You have that. You have guys that are just teaching techniques and tactics without anything else, no integration, no system, just whimsically throwing tactics and techniques out there. You have people that are teaching overarching concepts, but they don't teach anything technical. They don't teach anything about what to say and actually do. Here's my thing. This is going to be a bold claim. I'm not saying this with ego or with pride, but I have truly taken all of that and put it together under one umbrella. That was the goal when I wrote the book. When I wrote the book, The Vortex of Love, How to Get a Woman to Fall in Love with You, I wanted to create a super system, because I realized when I was out there running game, I wasn't just doing mysteries game. I wasn't just doing RSD, state dependent type stuff. I wasn't just doing speed seduction. I wasn't just, focusing on the negative aspects of female psychology and just viewing the game through this thing of dominance like a lot of the red pill coaches do, right? I was doing something different. I seemed to get a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I wanted something that was flexible and adaptable. I wanted something I could teach guys that they actually feel good about. So if I start getting too technical or systematic with a dude, I always tell guys, listen, if we're going too deep into the technicalities and you need a breather, you want to do some inner game stuff, you want to talk about mindset, you want to talk about emotional state, you want to get out of this world of technicalities. If I'm bogging you down too much with that, let's shift it up, right? But if we're just sitting there shooting the shit, and at the end of a call, a Zoom call or an in-person training session, the guy's like, wow, Erik, I really feel good. I'm motivated. I feel good on the inside. I feel clear-headed and stuff, but what do I say? How do I open the conversation? What qualification questions should I ask? How do I express to the girl that I went to school and graduated with honors and became an engineer? And, there are guys that need to learn the technical side of game, and they do not have intentions of manipulating. It's not going to fuck up their emotional state. It's not going to send them down some horrible path of, becoming indoctrinated, So I appreciate everything that you've said, but I do wholly reject the idea that learning technical game is somehow by definition sociopathic, which is what I believe you said. Like, this is by definition sociopathic behavior.
I don't, it's not like, it's what you were saying, the way that you was articulating it. You said, if there is no regulation, there is no state, there is no connection to authentic self. I haven't got access to that at the moment. We need to use another way to get this girl. So let's use the brain, let's use the mind, let's use the ego, a technique. Let's use over the shoulder. Let's use a shotgun neg to open the group set. Who's speaking to the girl? Who's speaking to the set? The ego is speaking to the set. So I just finished an immersion boot camp with a guy. He'd done a 3-week immersion with us. And like you said, like you pointed out, a lot of guys, they want the technique. Number one thing you're going to hear from a lot of guys is, what do I say? And I do agree, you know, telling them what they need to say. You can tell them what to say and give them like training wheels and systems and tactics. But when you start working somatically and you give him 2 options, a guy stands at the bar and he's got a girl next to him or a free set next to him. And he looks over and he sees the free set and he thinks to himself, I want to approach those girls over there. I want to approach that girl in the middle. What tactic am I going to use? What technique am I going to use? And he's walking over to do his approach. And he walks over to the girls. He leans over the shoulder and he's like, guys, what time does the club close in here? And it works and it opens up. And then he turns and he goes through this whole technique. That's one way to open that set. And then there's another way. The guy looks over at the 3 girls and he says, and I turn around to that guy and I say, fuck those 3 girls. You're not speaking to those 3 girls. Don't worry about those 3 girls. Focus on me. Focus on the music. Focus on the rhythm. Focus on the bass. And then he carries on enjoying his night. He turns to the right and instinctually sees a beautiful woman and expresses from instinctual expression. And it's the instinctual expression that causes the attraction anyway. Because authentic expression is what causes attraction, nothing else. It's the cadence, your voice tonality, the muscles on your face, that a woman's reticular activating system is reading, which causes attraction. So again, without authentic expression, there is no attraction. But that's not to say we need attraction to sleep with women. We can use something else. We can perform. We can use techniques. We can use tactics. But at what cost? It's the cost is my problem. So that's why I've got not a problem with it, because I understand it. But I myself, I was in the game teaching the tactics and the techniques, but I kind of evolved through that.
So I would argue, though, that you are still using tactics and techniques. You're using inner game tactics and techniques. A frame, okay? A frame is a belief.
Romeo, can you mute yourself?
There we go. A frame is a belief, accurate or not, about the underlying meaning of an interaction, and it's a set of behaviors designed to reinforce that belief. So if I come from the frame of mind that I need to express my authentic self, and I believe that wholly, right? I'm going to act in accordance with that belief. So beliefs are an inner-outer game hybrid tactic, if you will, because your goal isn't to just get a guy thinking positively or feeling positively and then sitting on the couch and doing nothing, right? Your goal is to get a guy thinking clearly, feeling good, and taking action. So what you're doing is you're trying to instill in him a set of frames that are advantageous for his success. So a frame or a belief, a mindset, an emotional state that you're trying to ingrain in him, it's an inner game, outer game hybrid tactic, if you will, but you still are using tactics. The only difference is you're not telling the guy what to say, what to do. You're not focusing on the outer game piece of it. You're taking the inside out approach. I believe the inside out approach can be effective. Sometimes it's exactly what a guy needs, but sometimes the outside in approach is more effective as well. I want to say one thing. I want to respond real quick to a comment here. Actually, go ahead and respond first, and then I got to address a comment here.
But again, like I've asked, it is a question, so maybe I should frame it as a question. At what cost? So when you
the cost depends on the guy, like I said before. So if the guy is in a really terrible mental and emotional state and he uses a bunch of tactics and techniques in a hollow sort of way, and you don't address the underlying issue, he's going to suffer. But here's the difference between me and a lot of other coaches too. I tell guys, look, my coaching is not a substitute for therapy. I've worked with therapists before that said, you would probably be a great therapist, Erik, and your clients probably get a therapeutic-like effect from your training. Because I do work with guys on inner game, but I tell them very clearly, look, I'm not a trained psychologist. I'm not a trained therapist. I don't claim that I can help you heal trauma. There's certain medical terms out there that a lot of coaches throw around whimsically. Oh, I help guys heal their trauma and shit. I don't have the balls to tell someone, I'm going to help you heal trauma that you had when you were 9 years old. That's in my opinion, where this thing gets dicey. I will teach guys inner game tactics and techniques. I will teach guys how I and clients of mine have found that we can get into better emotional states. But if a guy is really suffering mentally and emotionally, I have professional, trusted therapists and psychologists that I work hand in hand with. Even though I'll be honest with you, I think oftentimes inner game mindset, learning this stuff, a guy taking charge of his own life, that oftentimes will do a great thing for him, right? For me, for example, I always found that working on myself was the ultimate form of therapy. When I started reading books on psychology, reading books on the game, this took me further than actually just sitting on the couch with a therapist for an hour and then, okay, see you, bye, right? It took immersion, because I've had my highs and lows in life as well. But so the cost, you keep saying at what cost? It depends on the guy. If he starts using technical game and all of a sudden he's getting better results and it's authentic, it's not some slimy routines and material developed by other people, but I'm helping him develop authentic, honest material with the intention of it becoming ingrained to the point where he doesn't need it. My goal isn't for a guy to learn a bunch of systems and tactics and so forth, go out in the field, and now he can never freestyle ever again. He's just beholden to all of this material that he's developed. I want him to be able to freestyle. Just like a musician, you go learn to play the guitar from a good guitar teacher. He's going to teach you the chords. He's going to teach you the scales. He's going to teach you the mindset even, and how to practice your guitar in a good emotional state and enjoy the process. He's going to work on your mindset. He's going to manage expectations. He's going to teach you the music of other people, music that he's developed. But ultimately, a good guitar teacher is going to teach you how to play the music that's in your soul. So this is not just a scientific clinical endeavor, which is what I wanted to address in the comments here. I'm not just creating some weird shit and dressing it up in scientific language. This is not just science. This is art. This is the fusion of science and art. If a guy wants to be more scientific with it, he can. If a guy wants to be more artistic with it, he can. If he wants to be more technical with this game, he can. He wants to be more natural, spontaneous, he can. He wants to use direct game, indirect game, inner game, outer game, social circle, night game, day game, online. It's your story. You get to write your own story. The game is a choose your own adventure story.
So again, like when I keep saying the cost, and the reason I'm saying that is because I know the devastation of someone who's not regulated. Like what you said, if someone's not regulated, if someone is not in state, so when I read that, I might be wrong, but to me, it's pointing towards someone's not connected. They're not the authentic self. Use the tactics. So then when you turn around and say, use the tactics and the techniques authentically, it's not authentic because it's coming from the mind. It's coming from the ego, and it's the damage. Are you aware of what damage that actually does to the human mind, to the psychological structure? So if you want someone to learn how to speak to a woman, the self needs to speak to the woman. That's how integration happens. If the self's not speaking to the woman, it doesn't learn. So you're teaching the ego how to speak to women, and sometimes it works. And if it works, that's the problem. Because by automation, it automatically means the self is not good enough. So that's why you get guys that have been in this game for years and years, slept with hundreds and hundreds of women, using the techniques, using the tactics. And if you look in their eyes, you'll see the 1,000-yard stare. You'll see a deep sadness in their eyes. I can spot it in everybody. I can see it instantly because I had that sadness in my eyes as well. And I had to do some deep shit to reconnect myself because of the tactics, because of the techniques. And like, I agree with you, there are some people, when teaching them some tactics and techniques will work if they are connected, if they are authentic, if they are connected to state. So with your opening statement, when you're pointing towards state is not a necessity, it's just in a game or out a game. My argument is no. In a game, state, a connection to authentic self, is game, is love, is connection. Without it, everything else is a performance. And I don't want to teach people how to perform. I want to teach them how to fly. I want to teach them how to be an artist.
I just have to say one thing, and then I'll let you go, Kieren. You're throwing a lot of either or arguments out there. You either believe in expressing the authentic self or you're learning technical game. There can be no crossover between that.
No, I don't.
These are classic either or arguments.
I don't know. I don't believe that. I believe technique comes from authentic expression. I believe if someone is connected to themselves, you talk about martial arts, I'm a fighter, I'm a boxer. My best check hook didn't come from repetition of technique. My best check hook come from connection to authentic self. It come from expression. It come from that perfect moment, that perfect pivotal shot. Boom. It's like it's shown in like the Hadouken by Ryu and Ken, or the Hurricane Tatsu Matsu Senpu Ken. Where does that come from? It's not a technique. The technique comes from the expression. It doesn't need to be repped. It's in us. We're born great with women. It just gets blocked.
See, there's another point of disagreement, if I may, real quick. We know that we're not born with innate social skills because if you look at extreme abuse cases, right, there's a very sad case where a young boy was forced to live in a chicken coop. I don't know if it was in China or where it was, but somewhere, I think, in the East. And he was forced to live in a chicken coop. And he is not, there's certain damage that was done to him at such a young age that
Romeo, can you mute?
You can only train it out of your system by so much. So we know that humans learn by mimicking other humans. We learn to speak and do other things from our parents, from our culture, our social groups. Humans are not born with innate social skills. That's why we have different languages, right? You're born in this culture, you learn this language. You're born in this culture, you learn this language. And you can think of game as almost like a language as well, right? So this stuff is not ingrained in humans. So once again, it depends on the guy. It depends on the guy. Some guys need to learn the techniques, the tactics, the systems, and then their authentic self actually starts to shine more. I have no problem with what you're saying either. Sometimes it's about getting a guy connected to his authentic self, and then the right things to say and do just flow automatically. But in my opinion, if a guy wants to get to gameless game, as we call it, he needs to often, not always, but often go through the tunnel of learning the technical side of the game. We all want to be like Neo in the Matrix and just plug our brain in and I know Kung Fu now, right? You can't learn Kung Fu by plugging your brain into a wire. It's the same thing with the Venusian art.
You learn technique. I think the reason the techniques are important is so someone goes there and back again. So they begin their journey, they learn the techniques, they suffer, and then they drop the techniques, and then they realize it's authentic self. So the reason I believe, for myself, I learned the tactics and the techniques. So was it a good thing for me?
They're still in you. So, I could tell they're still in you. The way that you speak, you've trained yourself in a lot of different things. You tell me
I didn't train myself in the techniques. I trained my ego in the techniques and the tactics. It doesn't come from
that can happen. That is definitely a real pitfall.
But that is, and also, like you said as well, you mentioned, you said something about, I forgot.
While you're catching your thought, there are pitfalls of learning technical game. And what you're speaking about is a very real pitfall. You can train your ego. You can create some, character, some caricature of who you truly are. And you all of a sudden, you're kind of doing this state-based training of the game in doing that yourself. You can create a false identity. These are very real pitfalls of technical game.
I just want to come in quickly because I remember because you said about social skills. It's like, you're saying that we're not born with innate social skills. What if social skills got to do with attraction?
They're a subcategory of one another.
Yeah, but what is that doesn't answer. But what has social skills got to do with causing the emotion of attraction in a woman? What is the primary trigger for attraction, for a woman to feel attraction? What's the primary trigger? I don't want subcategories. What is your primary trigger to cause attraction in a female?
So the primary trigger to cause attraction in a female would be for a guy to be running a very authentic, honest
But Romeo, you really need to
game.
mute yourself when you're not talking. The feedback's horrible.
Yeah, there's a lot of feedback. I want a guy running his ideal state. This gets into what's called ideal mate theory. Okay. Again, I don't mean to keep going back to this, but I've covered all these bases right here. Okay. There's a section in here on mate selection theory. The entire pickup community and the dating community at large is built largely on economic and evolutionary mate selection theory. It's the idea that women want men that are high value, blah, 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 right? But there's a less talked about mate selection theory that I think is more powerful. It's called ideal mate theory, IMT. And it's the idea that women consciously or unconsciously have a picture in their mind of what their ideal man looks like. And they have an ideal picture of how the process goes down, how love actually forms. So when we closely match to her ideal, she will consciously or unconsciously become attracted to us, right? Even having an open-minded view of the type of guy she wants to be with or how it goes down, well, that's an ideal of open-mindedness. It's still an ideal. So you could take that knowledge and say, okay, so my goal is to figure out what her ideal is and then shapeshift myself into being that ideal. No, the goal is to develop a style of game that is authentic, that is honest, that feels true to you, and sharpen that one blade. And then the women that are meant for you will be drawn to you. So I don't know if that answered your question.
You use the question, the primary, what is the primary attraction trigger? So if I flip that question back on myself, the primary attraction trigger in a woman is authentic expression. Because when we're connected to authentic self, the woman reads it in our facial muscles.
As messed up as this sounds, I don't think that's always the case. There are some women that are actually attracted to guys that are more sociopathic, that are playing the game.
But that's attack. That's not attraction. That's dysfunction. I'm talking about attraction. When you describe someone who's attracted, you're talking about narcissistic magnet syndrome, a woman who's attracted to narcissists. That's not attraction. That's not the emotion of attraction. That's not relationship and connection. I'm talking about attraction. Now, the primary attraction trigger, we talk about Neo in the Matrix, to be the best pickup artist in the world. We're going to need some serious shit because we're up against it out there. We've got the Chads. We've got the guys that got washboard abs. They're super driving Lambos. So we're going to need to create something that's real, that's going to be consistent. We're going to need some energy. So when we
Romeo, I've got a question. From what I'm hearing, it basically sounds like, Romeo, you have a belief that the ends do not justify the means. Meaning that, and by the way, can you mute yourself? Yeah. So what I'm hearing is like a difference of philosophies. Romeo, it sounds like you believe the ends don't justify the means. So what is most important for you is for a man to be his most fullest, truest, authentic self. And in doing that, he's going to get fantastic results. But even in the times when he doesn't, it is still okay because he's being true to himself and therefore staying true to his soul. It also sounds like you believe that Erik is basically saying that he's happy to sell himself out, essentially, and to put on a mask in the aim of getting results. So what is more important to, say, Erik, that you believe, is actually the result of getting a woman in bed or what have you. You know, she wants you, she craves you, she needs you, etc. But in doing that, the man is actually losing something because he's not being true to himself and therefore a piece of him is actually dying inside. It sounds like that's what you're saying.
That's perfect. Yes.
But it sounds like that's not specifically what Erik's saying. So what Erik, now, if I'm listening to you, it sounds like what you're saying is, okay, yes, I want a man to actually be himself, but I also want him to have some tools in his toolkit so that he can navigate as many situations as possible. So he can be himself, but at the same time handle any scenario that he might come across. Is that basically what you're saying here?
Yo, if I give a guy a blank canvas and I give him some paint and I just say, here, paint what's in your heart, express yourself. And he's like, I took art lessons with you for you to show me actually how the colors work and how the different paintbrushes work on the canvas. And I was hoping you could show me some works of other great artists and we could talk about the actual techniques and tactics of creating the art. So I actually believe that 5 to 10% of this game is learning a system, learning tactics, techniques, and so forth. 90% of the game, 95% of the game is going and making your art, right? Going and using this and expressing yourself. I always tell guys, look, if you want to get good at this, you got to invest some time, generally speaking. Like if you had an amazing girl in your life, how much time would you spend with her on a weekly basis? And most guys will say 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours. And I say, okay, cool. How much time are you investing into learning the game and putting yourself out there? And it's usually not that same amount. Usually they're working too hard. They're worn down. They don't have time. They're going out maybe once on the weekend, So if you have 16 hours in a week to work on your game, quote unquote, I think 4 hours max should be spent learning this stuff, studying the concepts and so forth. 12 hours should be spent actually going out there and trying to create your art, paint on the actual canvas, right? Of those 4 hours, by the way, that you're studying, I believe only about 1 hour to 2 hours of that should be dedicated to learning frames, concepts, higher level stuff. I actually believe that the majority of your time should be spent developing techniques, tactics, technical sequences, if you will, because it's the next best thing to being in field. So in field is king. I believe visualizing yourself in field and developing the technical side of the game is second. And then I believe that the final piece of the puzzle is the higher level conceptual stuff. If I'm going to generalize, if I get a client who's a very dysregulated emotionally, as Romeo says, we're going to change those ratios up a bit. But assuming I'm working with a guy who's reasonably healthy, because I've actually found that there are quite a few guys that get into game that are emotionally healthy. Not every guy I work with is suffering in some massive way. Most guys that I work with are suffering, but they're not suffering any worse than anybody else's. Yes, I have the extreme cases of guys that are deeply hurt, right? But I actually think there are a lot more mainstream dudes that are learning game that are not just, falling apart. So,
but it's not the technique that gets the girl. If I run a speed seduction pattern on the girl, it's not the words that are coming out of my mouth that are causing the woman to feel attraction. It's it's her, how embodied I am when I'm running the speed seduction pattern. So I can go over to a girl and run the perfect technique, but it's not the technique itself that's causing the attraction in the girl anyway. So if I get rid of the technique, that's why I can walk into a club and I can start dancing salsa, doing a salsa solo by myself, completely embodied in the moment. Is that a technique, or is that me embodied?
You learned a bunch of salsa dancing, and then you went out there and freestyled in a good emotional state. So you're actually combining, once again, inner and outer game, which is what I believe in. Inner and outer game symmetry.
It's not, but Dean can't do salsa dancing, and Dean can go out and dance like a bozo and do the chicken dance and cause just as much attraction, because it's not the dance. It's the embodied state. It has nothing to do with the technique. This isn't martial arts. This is not boxing. This is human nervous systems. Nervous systems recognizing nervous systems. It's not what she recognizes. It's not her ego, her ideal man that she's looking for on the level of mind. That's not where attraction's played. You talked about love. Love's not in the mind. You talk about Venetian arts. Arts.
Well, if we
arts is right-brained. It's nothing to do with logic. It's not conceptualization. So I want to move away from conceptualization. So the tactics and the techniques keep the guy blocked. And that's the cost. It keeps them blocked, and it teaches them, by definition, your self's no good. Don't use the self. You're going to need to use a tactic and a technique. And
sometimes.
Sometimes. So
What you're saying is a real pitfall of technical game, but it doesn't mean everybody that uses technical game falls into this pitfall.
I don't
This sounds like a big sticking point that you had. It sounds like a big sticking point that Dean had, and it sounds like you guys never got over this sticking point of being able to use technical game in an integrated way. So you guys rejected the idea of technical game completely.
That's a broad stroke. When I've said to you that my technical game got to a very high level, I slept with hundreds of women, and I was technically sound, technically gifted when it comes to pickup artistry. So what you said there, I reject, and I reject that for Dean as well. I rejected technical game because technical game was stopping me from learning game. Because game is not played in the mind because women are attracted to authentic expression. That's it.
Okay, so first of all, we all exist as chemicals, signals in our brain. Okay, we're all just electrochemical signals in the brain. I would argue,
but you say that. That's your definition. That's your belief, and you could be correct. But to say we all, because what you're doing is we all. No, how do you know? Where did you learn that? How do you know that?
Science.
Science. So science is what is science?
The study of reality.
Okay, the study of subjective reality.
The study of objective reality.
Objective reality. So science is the study. It's still a theory. So it's not all. So when you
scientific theories, when something is called a scientific theory, that means it's built on a mountain of evidence. It's different than a philosophical theory.
And it's something that
theory is like is one step away from a scientific law.
Yeah, and it's something that we choose to believe because there's been so much evidence. But when you turn around and you were saying about neurochemicals, your definition, that's what you believe. But there's still other theories that go against what it is that you're stating there. So to say that's how it is, to sweep and go, yeah, that's all, I reject that.
Oh, I believe wholeheartedly that it's possible that we're more than just electrochemical signals in the brain, for sure, right? But as it stands right now within this time space, based on all of the mountains of scientific evidence, we take in information from our senses and it reflects in our brain in the form of images, right? So I had a concluding thought on something else here. Here's what I was going to say. Romeo, I actually think that you're much more capable.
Romeo, please mute yourself.
Yeah. I actually think, Romeo, that you are probably a lot more capable of teaching technical game in an integrated way than you think you are. And I actually think that if you, knowing what you know about the pitfalls of technical game, because I know them as well. I've experienced them as well. I've seen them in other guys. Knowing what you know about the pitfalls of technical game, don't you think that you could teach technical, systems, structured game techniques, technical sequences, and so forth, and teach it in a way that's not going to fuck a guy up in the head? I think it would make you a more powerful coach.
That's a fair comment. And there was a time when I was doing that. That's kind of like, when am I going to fully move away from it? But I wasn't getting the guys' results. These guys were going on boot camp after boot camp after boot camp. The guys in this industry, they're still in the forum. They've been in the forum since 2002. They're still doing reps. They're still doing their desensitization. We're failing. It's not working. I want to try to do my best to fix the problem. I don't want someone to come on 5 boot camps. I want them to have what it is they want to achieve. Success with women in dating.
Same.
That's what I'm trying to do here.
Romeo, it's not part of it. Sorry, Romeo, it's part of this as well. So what I'm kind of hearing from you is, am I right in suspecting that to you it feels a bit sleazy, slimy, manipulative, fake to use a technique? As in, a woman says X, and then you say Y, not because Y genuinely came to mind, but because you pulled up, you did your scan of your database. You're like, yes, Y is the correct response to X. And therefore you said Y. And that fundamentally at a core level, that feels just abhorrent and wrong to you. Is that a fair assumption?
It depends on the teacher. Definitely not from Erik.
No, but I mean, for you to do, to have a man do that. A man is with a woman and he is saying things that he hasn't necessarily just thought up, but he's got them stored in his brain for various, for various interactions, for various circumstances.
Well, yeah, because I come to a place where it's like I can give him the technique and teach him the technique. I want him to find his technique. I want him to find his expression. So I do feel icky doing it myself because I don't need to. This immersion, this boot camp, the guy that we just finished with, it's like he's asking me for what to say, but by the end of the boot camp, he doesn't need to know what to say. He doesn't need the technique. So
but,
it just
what I'm asking is that concept icky to you though? The actual concept of using the technique, does that genuinely not resonate well with you?
I just know, I just got a feeling. It's not like, I don't know if it's a belief, where's it coming from? There's just a feeling, like a dissonance that happens inside me when, if I'm teaching someone, I want to get them the result. There's something deep inside me that goes, this is the way to get that guy the result. He wants to be excellent with women. And the quickest way for me to do that is to get him to connect, let go of the techniques, let go of the mind and find yourself. Then you will find the technique.
Sometimes.
Well, yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes that's the right path to take with the guys. Sometimes it's not the right path to take.
But when it's not the right path to take, so we talk about the guys when it's not the right path to take. These guys that need to know what to say, and I teach them what to say at what cost. When I teach the ego to perform, I teach the ego how to act. What happens to the authentic self? It's split off, it's abandoned.
Sometimes it shines. Sometimes you teach a guy how to tell a story about his life, and his authentic self is liberated through the
But
technique.
he's not telling the story about his life. The ego is. You're like your ego speaking, my ego speaking to you, a couple of egos having a conversation with each other right now. Women,
what would we be without ego? So I think ego run amok and being egotistical is not the same as recognizing the need for a body and a mind and a sense of self. So I think there's a time to be in the present moment, forget about who you are, just be in the moment, be emotionally integrated. But is it all about just, let me just release my ego and forget my identity?
No, we're talking about attraction, Eric. We're talking about cause and attraction. Attraction is cause from expression of authentic self. That's why we can't use martial arts.
So here's what I would say. Expression of authentic self is a major driver of attraction, but it's not the only driver of attraction. If you are expressing your authentic self, but you just sit in your mom's basement all day playing video games, you're expressing your authentic self.
But you clearly know that when I'm talking about expressing authentic self, I'm talking about expressing authentic self in the proximity of women. I mean, I can say that. I can say when I say expressing the authentic self, I'm not talking about sitting in your basement. But what I'm talking about is going into a club or going into a target-rich environment, and you want to pick up chicks. Spend your night or spend your day expressing authentically, and you will attract females.
Energy game, from my understanding, is just taking a bunch of concepts that we've already known in this sphere for a long time, stacking them together and calling it energy game. Right?
Well, so everything that I've said. So have you not listened to what I've said? I've talked about
get into an emotional, a solid emotional state. Free your mind, free your emotional state. Be your authentic self in the moment, and then what to say and do will just automatically come to you. And there will be no need for techniques and systems and anything else, because if you use those systems and techniques and systems, you will be disconnected from authentic self. And if you're disconnected from authentic self, you won't trigger attraction in the woman, and then you'll be extremely emotionally dysregulated. There's a massive cost that comes to you from using technical, systematic game. That's basically your argument.
Excellent.
Okay. So I got your argument.
Yes, excellent.
Okay, and my argument is what it has been.
Yeah, go on, Eric. Carry on.
Well, and my argument is that can be a pitfall of technical game. For some guys, what you're suggesting is the exact solution they need. But there are dozens of iterations and deviations and sticking points and stuff that guys have. This is an oversimplification of the game, in my opinion.
But that's where I'm in agreement with you. I think I've said in my opening statement that there is a time and place for technical game, but there is a cost for that.
There's a cost for not focusing on technical game too. If the guy's solution is actually he needs to learn some techniques and tactics, right?
So there's a cost for a man regulating himself and being his authentic self
No,
rather than
I would never
grandiose.
say that. I would never say that emotional regulation and being a well-integrated person, mind, body, spirit, there's a negative cost to that. I do believe there's an opportunity cost if you overly focus on your mind, your emotional state, and your spirit instead of get out there, back up, try to talk to the girl. You don't have an opener, try my opener. You don't want to use my opener? Let's create
Yeah.
an honest opener, an opener that is yours, that is something that actually
Put on-
happens to your life.
So like what you say to them is put on the mask. If you want, if you haven't got anything to say, here's a mask, here's a performance, try that on for size.
I think that's just an attempt to reframe what I'm saying.
Well, no, but that's what you say to the guy. Here's a technique. Go use the technique.
Yes.
Hold on. Do you guys not just have different goals? It sounds like I'm hearing different goals. Because, like, okay, so, like, for instance, Romeo, if I was to ask you, what would be, like, the ultimate goal of the skill set that a man would have when you coach him? I would imagine that you would say something like, he's going to love himself completely, he's going to be great internally, and he'll probably have an 80% success rate, which is leagues above the average man on the street. He's probably on like 10 or 15 or something like this. I would then say that if I was to say the same thing to Erik, Erik would say something like, oh, his success rate is going to be through the roof. It's going to be like 95 to approaching 100, and that almost no woman on earth is ever going to be able to resist him. And it sounds like, as I'm listening to this, by the way, can one of you mute yourself, please? So it sounds like what I'm hearing is just a difference of philosophies where Romeo is essentially trying to heal the man from within, and by a knock-on result, give the man a sexual connection with women he's never had before. Whereas Erik wants to create Casanova in 2026.
No.
I'm actually trying to create. I'm trying to create Casanovas. Like, it's called Succeeded Dating. My flagship product is called Origins, Excellence in Modern Dating. But I hear that. But the way to be excellent with women is connection to authentic self. That's why I don't believe through pickup artistry you're going to be excellent with women. I think you're going to be stifled at the bar, not being able to deliver anything, because if you're not connected to the authentic self, you're not regulated. You're operating from the mind with the limbic system switched on. Good luck with that. But
just to clarify then, so what you are effectively saying is that a man who does energy game and a man who studies, let's say, Erik's system, the energy game guy is going to close more women than the other guy is going to date more, etc.
Yes, 100%.
So it's not a moral issue, it's a success issue.
It's a success issue, it's a moral issue, it's a real issue. It's authentic self versus performance, art. It's art versus authentic expression.
Okay,
which you love, the game, the arts, the performance that you love. And I appreciate that. And there is people that kind of leaned more towards that performance, that artistic dance. But from what I'm seeing in the pickup industry, and a lot of people, they actually want to learn to become great with women. They don't want to learn some tricks.
Okay, so for me, what is my goal for my client? Every client is different.
Romeo, mute yourself, please.
Yeah. All right.
Every client is different. I don't claim to turn guys into Casanovas, okay? If a guy wants to push himself to the extreme, he absolutely can. I give him all the tools. I give him the building blocks of this to do so. I can absolutely get somebody good at the game. Some guys just want to feel better. Some guys, the goal of meeting women is secondary, and this is about self-actualization. It's about transcendence. Some guys, every guy is sort of different, but if I'm going to generalize, there are two things that I want for a guy. I want him to get results, and I want him to enjoy the journey. If he gets results, but he doesn't like the journey, he doesn't feel good about what he's doing, or it's not sitting with him well, that's not success. If I get a guy just feeling good about the journey, but he's not actually getting results, that's also a failure. So my goal is journey and results, both. And I don't make extravagant promises. You're muted, Kieren. Kieren. You're muted, brother.
Yeah, I'm saying carry on.
Okay. So again, results and journey. You can have both. You can have the technical, structured, systematic game. You can have the inner game, the expression of authentic self. There's a fusion of all of that. You don't have to choose one or the other. And I would advise guys to learn everything. Learn the different systems out there. Learn the techniques and tactics of the pickup artists, the old school ones, right? Learn Mystery's M3 model. Learn my super system, okay? This is days away from being released on Amazon and Ingram. I literally hit publish yesterday. It's going to have to go through some wonkiness of the system, but it's literally going to be available for purchase in a matter of days. Learn what Romeo is talking about, right? But here's where I'm going to disagree slightly with Romeo. I believe that energy game and what you're describing here fits under the umbrella of the vortex. The vortex doesn't reject what you're saying at all. But what I'm rejecting is this either or style of argument, this argument that there's always a cost to using systems and techniques, that it's always performative, that it's always a mask and ego. No, there is an authentic way to sing your song, to live life in an artistic, expressive way.
How? Can you give me an example? If you've got a student, so you're in a club right now and you've got a student, can you give me an example of how you fuse this together? Authentic expression fused with technical game. Can you
well,
show
so
me
a lot of the work, first of all, happens before we even get out in field, right? If we're in field, you know, the goal is to have already, you know, get ourselves in motion and start moving, right?
I appreciate that, and I understand there's classroom before in field.
So
when you're in, I'm in the club with you right now. I'm stood there next to you. There's a 5 set there.
Mm-hmm.
What do I say?
What is the backstory of you? So ideally, we've already prepared some openers, right? If you don't want to use, like, let's say we're there's a 5 set, you want to talk to them. Now, before we got in the club, are you a guy who's told me, you know what, Eric, I really want to focus on natural game, mindset, emotional state. I really don't want to use canned openers. I really want to just kind of be able to express myself. Well, then I'm going to find a creative way to get him in motion and opening the set, right? How? If I talk to him, how? Once again, it depends on the guy and how much work.
Okay, I suffer from approach anxiety. I've been in the game for 6 years.
Okay.
I've slept with 3 girls. I've been trying to do the M3 model. I can't get it to work. I want to get it to work. And I'm stood here in the club with you and I'm absolutely petrified. And there's a beautiful blonde over there. How do I get her phone number? How do I do it?
What did we do before we got in the club? Did I take him through absolute zero approach anxiety, my system for lowering a guy's approach anxiety as much as possible before taking action? Because here's another thing that we might disagree on, okay? I believe that the majority of a guy's approach anxiety needs to get worked out in field, meaning he has to do that which he is afraid of, even though he's feeling afraid, and relief from the fear will be on the other side of the thing that he's afraid of doing. So when we're not in field, when we're in the classroom, I have a bunch of different tactics and techniques for lowering his approach anxiety, various exercises and so forth we can do.
How?
You want me to pull up absolute zero approach anxiety slides?
I just like to know how, if you've got a guy who's in your classroom and he suffers from approach anxiety, and my thoughts on approach anxiety, I don't think these guys are suffering from approach anxiety. I think they're suffering from shyness. And that's why you're trying to cure approach anxiety. It's not approach anxiety they're dealing with. They're split from the self. They're in the mind. They're in the head.
Shyness, fear of expressing oneself.
Yeah, shyness comes from toxic shame. It's stored in the bones. It's in the body. It's not in the mind. It's in the body.
Comes from a lot of things. Shyness and approach anxiety is another multifactorial thing. That's why I say, if I'm in a club with a guy and he needs to approach a girl, what work have I done with him already? What have I learned about him already? What is he suffering from as a unique?
Can you give me an example? I understand what you're saying. I get what I really do. I get it. You're saying it depends on the guy.
Yes. So here's an example. Let's say, let me take you back in time. Can you mute for a second? Because I'm gonna have to explain this one. So let's say I do a consultation with a guy and he tells me about his approach anxiety and he tells me about all of these limiting beliefs that he has with women, that women don't want to talk to him. He's not tall enough. She's probably busy. She probably has a boyfriend. Whatever it is, he's internalized all of these negative thoughts, right? Or fear of expressing himself, as you said, right? Shyness, fear of expressing his authentic self. Somewhere along the way, he expressed his authentic self to some women. He got some harsh rejections for it. And now he associates expressing his authentic self with harsh rejection. Or even worse, he has imagined a bunch of harsh rejections when he expresses his authentic self. And he hasn't actually had the balls to go out and find out what happens if he actually expresses his authentic self, right?
Sorry, but like when you're explaining shyness and expression of authentic self, I noticed that you said it comes from women. Shyness and the fear of expressing authentic self has nothing to do with women. It comes at the age of 2. It happens from our mothers. It happens the relationship, the baby happens with mum. It doesn't happen
sometimes.
No, all the time.
No, I don't think so. I think there are some people that actually had a very loving.
You use science, and not about loving. It's not about even if you. It doesn't matter if you have a loving mother. If she hasn't got the ability to mirror you, if she's not attached to her authentic self, and you're just looking at an ego, that's where trauma and
so
shyness.
You don't think that people can develop shyness later in life?
I believe they can form a version of shyness, but the deep-rooted shyness, which is affecting guys, giving them this approach anxiety, this visceral fear to approach a woman, is certainly not coming because Wendy rejected them at school.
Okay, I think once again, shyness and approach anxiety is multifactorial. So if I could complete my thought here. So I learned all of these things about a guy, right? And then I actually learn that he is the kind of guy who I need to change his emotional state to get him to approach a group of women, right? I can talk to his mind, his conscious, logical mind, all I want, and he still feels emotionally blocked, and he can't move his body unless he removes this emotional block, okay? I am going to, in the club with him, do whatever I can to unlock his emotional state, okay?
How?
Once again, it depends on a guy, right? I can get him talking about something that gets him excited. I can get him expressing himself to me about something he's excited to talk about, right? He just completed a project that was really challenging on his computer. He ripped some code out of this system and he rearranged it and he put it into this system and he's all excited about it. Boom. You know, you can open a set with that. You can literally walk up to a group of girls and just say, do you know what I did today? I ripped a set of code, computer code, out of this old 1990s hardware, blah, blah, blah. And I inserted it over here and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And he goes off on some rant about computer code. Most guys think you can't rant about computer code in a club. The girls are going to be like, who are you? You know, you're not a celebrity. No, if you, and you should agree with this one, Romeo, if you're in a good state of mind and you're expressing yourself authentically, you can go off on a rant about computer code and the girl will often, not always, but often be drawn into your enthusiasm, your fascination, right?
So you teach energy game.
But so there's one small example of how if I know a guy is motivated from being in a solid emotional state, I'm going to unlock his emotions. Then he's going to spring into action. Then his mindset is going to come later, right? But now if I work with that guy and he's super analytical and he's super logical, and if he gets a cog in his mind, if there's some sort of wrench in the gears, I got to get that wrench out of his mind. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to say, dude, you know, there's no rational, logical reason why you should be fearing this, right? This takes about the same amount of energy to walk up and start a conversation with a group of women as it does to order a cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? So this emotional wall that you're hitting, it's psychological. Like physiologically, it's the same amount of energy. It's the same puffs of air that need to come out of your lungs, right? And realistically, what's going to happen? What's the worst thing that's going to possibly happen? They tell you to fuck off. What do? You smile, you turn around. Nobody even knows if you know them already, right? Now, if you sulk and you go like this and you scurry away, sure, other people are going to see it, right? But you go over, start the conversation. You have a few contingency plans that I gave you for if something goes wrong, right? So I work on the guy's logical mind, and then he takes action, and then he feels better, right? So mind, body, then emotional state. Or if I learn that the guy is just, I need to get him moving, right? His thoughts are clear. His emotional state seems to be somewhat normal. Dude, you know what the answer is right now. You have to take action. I may even start moving him around a little bit. Hey, let's go stand over here, right? Give me a fist bump. Give me a fist bump, right? Like, let's chat. Talk to me about something. Use your hands. Start gesturing. I get him taking action, telling me a story, moving his hands. And now all of a sudden I've got his body in motion. And now, okay, there's the set. Boom. I roll him into the set.
So
it
you're pumping,
depends on the guy.
so all those examples, you're pumping their state.
No.
You're getting, you're
Nope. In one guy, I'm changing his mind, and
well,
then
you
it
can say that
unlocks.
you can say that you're changing his mind. You can turn around and believe I'm changing this guy's mind. But to the guy, to the receiver that's receiving your energy, you're causing him to approach from something else.
The ideal is
you're using words and structures and
yes,
different kind of methods
yes.
to achieve the same thing with each of those guys.
Emotional integration is an ideal, okay, but sometimes it doesn't come first. Sometimes I have to change his mind, and it brings his body into action, and then his emotional state catches up. Sometimes I have to turn off his mind, turn off his emotions,
I don't need
mode.
to do that. I can do that without that. I can go straight to the source. That's what we do.
I would argue it depends on the guy.
I know you're going to argue with it, of course, but I can. You know,
that's why my answer was so long-winded. I said, how much work have I done with the guy? What does he respond to? What is his backstory? That's going to determine what I do to get him to unlock.
Yeah, the different techniques and methods that you're going to use to get the guy the result. What I'm saying is, I've evolved my game and my coaching, so I don't need to use those methods. I just go straight to the source.
I used to think there was one source too. There is no one source.
I used to think that too. I was in the game for 22 years, 23 years. Speed seduction practitioner, a mystery method practitioner. Done it, been there. So yeah, I get what you're saying. But there is a level that you can go to where you can teach these guys to connect to something where you don't have to go with the mind. You can teach them to connect to the authentic self, and then all the jiu-jitsu starts coming out. It's amazing. It's a beautiful thing.
If a guy already has good game and he's blocked emotionally, all I have to do is unblock his emotions and his game shines. I'm all for it. That's part of what I do as well. But it's not the whole thing.
Or if he's not, so say he's not blocked and he is attached to his authentic self. Why is he on boot camp?
Once again, a variety of reasons. It's not always disconnection from authentic self.
Well, I'm not saying a disconnection with authentic self. I think if you go into a room, if you go into a nightclub, I think it's like 5. I mean, you like science. I think it's 5 to 7% of people have self-agency.
Saying that a guy is disconnected from authentic self.
When you say disconnect to authentic self, I'm not stating that everybody's disconnected from the authentic self. I know that it's kind of like it's on a spectrum. But what I'm saying is self-agency, being actually completely embodied, being authentic, that authentic expression, that is the root of attraction. Someone who's embodied is hyper attractive. So I want to get someone to become embodied so they are hyper attractive, so they have excellence in modern dating. That's my objective.
My objective is to get a guy. My goal is to get a guy a style of game that feels authentic. Okay, so it's going to be a combination of feeling connected to authentic self, inner game, his mindset, his emotional state, and I want him to have a set of customized tools that also feel authentic.
But if he's attached to his authentic self, why would he need technique?
There are a lot of guys.
Can you give me an example? Can you give me an example of a guy that you've had come on one of your boot camps or your programs who's got self-agency, who's embodied, so he's fully connected, he's hyper confident in himself, and he's sat there and he's going, "I need you to teach me some techniques." Yes. Why would he need you to tell him what to do if he's?
Yes, I work with highly successful dudes. We have guys that come on.
I didn't say successful. I said self-agency.
We have guys that are like that. Yes, we have guys that either.
Can you describe to me in the audience what that would look like? So you've got this guy who's, like you said,
very smart, very hardworking, gets along with his family, gets along with his coworkers, works out, he's healthy, he studies all sorts of cool stuff. He's not quite attracting the women that he wants to. He occasionally gets some, haphazard relationships with women that he's not either physically attracted to, personality-wise, he's not attracted to them. He's not quite living up to what he thinks he should be with the game. He's not quite maximized his game.
I think a lot of the audience in the pickup community haven't really got that sort of stuff going for them. I think some people have, but a lot of the guys that are suffering in this game haven't got that going for them. And also, you dodged. I said about authentic self-agency. If you've got someone that has got self-agency, What can you give me an example of what the type of things they say to you when you're in the club with them?
There are a lot of guys that have their lives integrated in many ways, and they're like, but just this one thing.
Not lives. I didn't say lives. I'm not talking about whether they've got their career's great. People, I live in Bali. I've got people that haven't got no career. Their lives are all over the place. They haven't got a pot to piss in, but they've got self-agency. They're hyper attractive. They teach surfing. So I'm talking about the guys that you meet on your boot camps that have got self-agency. They're embodied. They're in state, stood there. Why would they need techniques? Can you give me an example of that, of what a guy would say to you?
So here's the perfect example, okay? Opening the conversation is one of the most challenging parts of courtship for a lot of guys, especially when they're in.
No, but he's got self-agency.
Okay.
Do you know? Can you describe self-agency?
Self-agency. I mean, in a broad definition of self-agency, like the ability to take action himself, the ability to will himself to do things. His body listens to his mind.
No, it's called internal locus of control.
Okay, so you lay out the definitions for me, since you're throwing definitions.
It's not my definition. It's just what self-agency is. Self-agency is when you have internal reference. So you're not looking outwardly on an energetic level. You're looking at yourself. So you're dancing.
Okay, so here, perfect. I've got it now.
It's a state of hyper confidence.
There are guys that have great self-agency, that think highly of themselves, that don't care about outside approval, and they're still very socially stilted and awkward, and they're getting rejected repeatedly, and they don't know why they're getting rejected.
So my argument would be they don't have self-agency. Because if they had self-agency, they could approach women, because they're not approaching women for the women, they're approaching them for themselves.
They either don't have self-agency, or they may need some tactics and techniques. They may need someone to hold a mirror up and say, here's what you're doing, guy. Here's how it's coming off. Here are some new ways you can go about it.
So you believe someone who's got self-agency would still come on a boot camp and request you to give them techniques? That's your belief?
Yes, I think I actually work with quite a few guys that way. Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely that's the first 100% disagreement. So to sit there and say you believe someone who's got self-agency would need your help for techniques to speak to women. It's correct. Yeah, we're on completely different.
Okay, I'm going to look up the definition of self-agency right now. Someone in the chat said self-agency and social awkwardness cannot exist together. So this is what the definition is. Self-agency, or personal agency, is the psychological sense of being in control of one's own life, actions, and decisions. It involves setting goals, taking initiative, and believing that one's actions lead to desired outcomes. High self-agency is characterized by proactivity, self-reflection, and taking responsibility, rather than feeling like a victim of circumstances. That's the definition that I just read. Okay, so generally speaking, hold on. Generally speaking, guys with self-agency don't need as much training, but there are quite a few guys that I work with that are go-getters.
Can you give me an example like I asked, like you've explained that, I'm asking you, can you give me an example of someone that's come on your boot camp that's got high self-agency with the definition that you've just used? Because I could add more to that, but with that definition that you found on Google or wherever you found it, with that definition, guy, you've said you had guys that have got high self-agency. So can you give me an example of what a guy with high self-agency would say to you?
I'll give you a couple definitions, a couple examples, okay? So one guy with a lot of self-agency, he just wants a coach to help magnify his results. He's already doing pretty well with women, and he wants to get even better.
Can you read that definition again? Can you see, if you read that definition with what you've just said there, can you see how that doesn't fit? Because he's got high self-agency. So he wouldn't be asking those questions, would he? Because he's in control of his reality.
Oftentimes, a guy with self-agency doesn't need as much coaching. He may want to get coaching because he wants to supercharge his skills. He wants to accelerate the learning curve. He wants to get really good. He accelerates in many areas of life. He has self-agency. He wants to get even better at the game. There's another type of guy. Hold on a second. Hold on. There's another type of guy who has self-agency. Another type of guy who has self-agency, and he thinks that he's a go-getter, and he thinks he has a strong internal locus and so forth.
But that's not self-agency.
But he's failing. He's going out there and he's getting rejected. Women think he's awkward.
By your definition that you've just read, everything that you've just said doesn't fit in the definition that you've just read, because he's got high self-agency. So what I'd put to you is, I teach men how to have high self-agency. That's it. That's it.
Cool. I teach guys to have self-agency, and I give them practical tools as well.
But they wouldn't need it. By your own definition, they wouldn't need practical tools if they had high self-agency, because they would have their they'd have their own control of their agency, the control of their life. So
that's my goal. No, let me get clear about something as well. My goal is to get a guy self-sufficient as soon as possible. My goal is not to get a client and then have him take 1 million boot camps and never leave me, and he never gets the results he actually wants. My goal is to get a guy a sense of self-agency over his game. But there are guys that have self-agency that also want to accelerate the learning curve. They know they can do it on their own, but they want to train. Michael Jordan had a trainer, right?
Yeah, but I thought you were teaching pickup.
Then there's the other type of guy who has self-agency, but he's doing it wrong. He's a go-getter. He's going out there. He's trying to figure it all out himself, but he's still fucking up. He's not self-correcting. He's not making so he doesn't have as much self-agency as he thought he did, right?
Yeah, can you give me an example of how that would look in the club? So a guy has got
very awkward. He believes he's smart. He believes he's smart. He believes he knows what he's talking about. He believes he has game. He believes he's cracked the code and figured it all out. And he's out there getting rejected by women, and women are saying, bro, we don't want to talk to you. Sorry.
But
right?
He doesn't have high self-agency then, because if he had high self-agency and women are attracted to authentic expression, he wouldn't have girls go and get away from me.
He would be correcting, right? He would be correcting his behavior and self-correcting. So he doesn't have as much agency as he thinks he does.
If he had high self-agency, then he would be auto-correct and he wouldn't need your help by your definition.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we agree on that.
Right, exactly. So we have guys that have high self-agency.
I teach guys how to have high self-agency.
So we have guys that have high self-agency that want to train because they enjoy training and pushing themselves. Then we have guys that think they have self-agency, but really they're out there fucking up and not self-correcting. And
how many guys do you think that are watching this podcast now have high self-agency?
I think a lot of the guys watching this podcast probably have decent self-agency. This idea that we only work with guys that are terrible with women and suffering and so forth is false.
No, it doesn't mean
I help guys that are beginner, intermediate, and advanced. To take a guy that has horrible self-esteem and create the illusion of helping him is one thing. To be able to take a beginner to intermediate to advanced, and beyond, that's what separates.
You brought science into it. The percentage of people that have got high self-agency is like 5%. 95% of people do not have high self-agency. So to turn around and say that all the people that are watching this podcast have high self-agency, if they had high self-agency, they would have high self-agency. They wouldn't be watching this podcast.
I would love to see the sources on that and how we define that, because now we're getting into a really abstract topic, and that is the fundamental attribution error, where it's easy to look at other people that are not getting results in their life and say, oh, it's because they don't have self-agency, and we are downplaying the reasons that they're in those situations. But then when we ourselves are successful, oh, it's because I have high agency.
I didn't say anything. You're saying successful. You're using the word successful. I didn't say successful. I said high self-agency, connected to authentic self, internal locus of control.
But here's what I'm saying.
Doing things for yourself, not needing external validation. No fear. There is no fear with high self-agency. There is no fear. There's pure cadence, pure expression. When we're a baby,
I don't even believe that complete elimination of fear is the goal. Now we're getting into a separate topic of fear. So we're going off in many different topics here, which is fine. But do you believe the goal is to completely eliminate yourself and your clients' fear? You think fear should not exist at all?
I don't think we should eliminate fear. I think fear is healthy, but I think when it becomes pathological, and that's what we're dealing with. I'm not talking about.
We're not always dealing with pathological fear. Sometimes we are.
I'm not talking about biological fear. There's a tiger in here. It's healthy to feel fear, but when you're held back by your fear and you're identified with your fear, that's when it becomes a problem. But if you have high self-agency, you're connected to authentic self, and in authentic self, that kind of pathological fear can't exist because it exists in the limbic system.
Romeo,
so what I'm stating to you is, I understand you teach techniques. I get that. And you teach people methods. I teach people high self-agency, how to connect to authentic self. That's what I do. That's it.
See, and
So,
I reject that either or argument. I teach guys self-agency and I teach them
well, I've
tactics
asked you
and
to.
techniques.
I've asked you to explain to me how you do that with someone that's got high self-agency. So, explain.
And
that
I
to me.
explained to you, some guys with high self-agency want to train. They want to understand the tactics, the techniques, the systems, because they like maximizing their skills in many areas of life. And they believe in coaching and training. They don't believe they have to do it all themselves.
So how many? So how many men that come on your boot camps percentages have got high self-agency?
A lot. We have guys.
So mainly you work with a lot of people that have got high self-agency.
No, but I would say
you said a lot. You said a lot 3 times.
Once again, how do we define self-agency? This is where it gets very gray. You know what I mean? Like the guy
you've defined it.
Let me clarify. A guy with extremely high self-agency, that is more rare. There's usually 1 or 2 guys on a given boot camp that have what I would call extreme self-agency, maybe even more self-agency than me.
I'm getting a bit lost. What's the point of the self-agency point?
The reason I'm bringing the point of self-agency is because I believe that high self-agency is all you need to attract beautiful women. That's it. So instead of going with the tactics, the techniques, if I can teach someone just to connect with themselves and have high self-agency, they don't need.
And how are we defining self-agency? How's that defined?
I think the definition that Erik used was perfect. I think that's fine. That encapsulates a lot of what I would say. It didn't talk about internal locus of control, but yeah, I think that's a good enough definition for now.
That's the same thing as self-agency, basically, is internal locus of control.
It's a part of self-agency, yeah. It's where we don't look externally. When you don't care about what people think, you care about what you think.
And so here's
what exactly is your contention with what Erik's trying to say right now?
What's my
contention? Like, what exactly are you disagreeing with?
My contention is just when you talk about methods and tactics and techniques, I don't think that's necessary. Just go straight to the source. Teach them how to have high self-agency, and they don't need tactics and techniques. They become the technique.
If I hire a business coach, I don't want him to just teach me the mindset. I don't want him to just teach me to deal with failure.
It's not a mindset. I didn't say a mindset. I said high self-agency. I'm not talking about the mind. I'm
going to throw my own 2 cents into this.
Not the mind. No mind.
I am more aligned with Romeo than with Erik in that. When I first got into this about 2 decades ago, I was pure techniques. And I got fantastic results. But I realized that in doing all that, and Romeo, can you mute yourself, please?
Shit.
I realized that in doing all of that, I lost myself. There were quite a few occasions where it's like I ran out of techniques and I fucked it up and blah, blah, blah. And then I just went completely in the opposite direction. So in that sense, I'm more aligned with Romeo. However, personally, if I'm going to be honest with myself, I am aware that my game as it stands isn't as good as it would be if I was reliant on techniques as well. Because it's like I'm in situations and I am me and my energy flows and it's fantastic the vast majority of the fucking time. However, if I had a quote unquote perfect comeback for every possible thing that could be said to me, I would do even better. However, I'm doing so fucking well that I don't give a shit. And it's better for me to just actually be me and to just radiate my energy. So I'm comfortable being 8.8 out of 10 rather than 10 if it means I get to actually be myself.
Because you've got high self-agency.
At the same time, Kieren, can I ask you something, Kieren?
You've got high self-agency. That's it. You've arrived. You found yourself.
Let me ask Kieren something.
You don't need techniques because you've got you. You found you, and you are enough to approach women.
I hear and I appreciate that, but like the way I look at it is like this. So here's how I'm imagining it. Let's say you got like the greatest hip hop song known to man. You got the greatest rock song known to man. You got the greatest EDM song known to man. Well, that hip hop song, like it will crush it in hip hop clubs, but then you might go to a rock club and people don't give a shit because it's a hip hop song, right? So when I'm thinking about like being me, it's like I'm the best hip hop song I can be. I'm a hip hop track. Now, if you love hip hop, you're going to love me. If you like classical, then I guess I'm not for you. When I think about techniques, it's like being able to create that one fucking hit that crosses all of the genres and that people love irrespective of what the hell they actually listen to, which in my mind takes more effort and I couldn't be fucking bothered to do.
And it kind of sounds sociopathic.
It does to me.
So let me ask you this. Romeo, can you mute yourself a second so I can talk to Kieren real quick? Okay. So this is the path that you took, and this is where you're at. And I applaud you for that. And I think there's a lot of wisdom and value to gain from that. And especially if a guy wants the similar path. But you also recognize that sometimes to get where you're at, a guy needs to take a more technical, systematic approach, and he can still wind up in the same ideal place that you're at. Because you're in a place right now where you're crushing it, you feel good, you've got girls in your life. You know, I've never even been out with you. I don't know. I can look at you and say, here's a dude who gets results, right? It's in front of me right now. Okay. Do you recognize that there's also a different path to getting to that place? And my second question for you is, don't you think some of the greatest pieces of art that you've enjoyed, Stairway to Heaven and all this music and stuff that touches our soul, not every single artist set out to create the number one hit of all time. They wrote something authentic. They expressed something from deep inside. My goal when I wrote my book was not to get a bunch of sales. It was not to create like a pop song in the form of a book. My goal was to write something truly authentic from deep inside of me and just write something epic. And I knew it had the greatest chance of success by doing that as well, right? So it's not sociopathic to create something and wanting it to be good, to express yourself. That is one of the purest forms of expression, art, right? That's why we call ourselves Venusian artists. This is an expression of one's artistic self. Anyway, Kieren, sorry.
Yeah. So, what was your first question? Yeah. Of course, guys can get to that point from multiple perspectives. So, I'm not really here saying that one way is necessarily better than the other, because there's the way that's good for me and which seems to be good for Romeo as well, but other people have different perspectives. So I'm not really here saying that you have to do things one way or the other. I had to use all of the techniques to realize they weren't right for me, you know? So if I didn't go through that, then I wouldn't be where I am now. And the
now
truth
here's
is,
a question. Here's a question though. You learned a bunch of techniques to realize they weren't right for you. But do you believe that also in the process of learning those techniques, you sort of did ingrain some of those techniques and integrate them
I definitely did.
in a more natural way. And now you use them more heuristically, right? They're heuristic.
No, that is true. That is true. Because like, say, if a woman says to me, my gosh, you're so confident, my brain goes, aha, now's the time to tell her that I wasn't confident growing up, you know? And like, which actually is a technique. So the truth is that in all honesty, it's like 90% freestyling, or maybe 95 or so. But there is a part of my brain that's like, oh, well, you know, if a technique that I know is going to be good to use at a specific time comes up, then fuck it, let's just use the technique. Like if it comes to mind and I know it's in a good place, I will do it. But 95% of it is just me and my energy.
Does it feel good when you do that? Does it feel good in the body when you use the technique, or does it feel better when it doesn't come to the mind?
No, it doesn't. So I do it because I know it will get the result. But
does it feel down, feels a bit icky?
Yeah, deep down it does. Deep down, I don't like doing it.
But you ever use it in a more authentic way? Does your brain ever automatically do something? It feels right and good in the moment. And then when you look back on it, you're like, that was probably something I trained into my muscle memory and it came out in an authentic way, because that probably happens too.
Well, the thing is this, it's like, unless I have just said it in the moment, it's like it's just come to me. As in, I had no idea I was going to say that, or I have no idea where that came from. Unless that is the case, it's like there's a part of me that's like,
that's
you're not
the goal
really
too,
being
though.
too true to yourself.
Look at sometimes with a guy, I drill down and I get him some material. Listen, dude, let's get you a couple openers. Let's get you a couple stories that are really solid. Sometimes that's all it takes is a dozen or a few dozen tactics and techniques. And he's like, I've got this. And now his brain automatically comes up with stuff to say and do. I don't believe a guy has to sit there and learn thousands of tactics and techniques and dozens of different iterations of systems, right? He can train technical game for a little bit to jog his creative juices and then just flow, right? And if that works for some guys, I'm all for it. Some guys want to go deep into this. Some guys want to go a little bit into it. Some guys just want to learn it and use it more heuristically, because that's what you guys are doing as well. You studied the game, you know the technical side of the game, and you're using it heuristically. or you're dropping it intentionally. These are all still tactics and techniques.
That's why I think this debate it's more of a collaboration. It's like, I don't doubt for one second that you teach high level. Right? I don't doubt that you can take a guy that's terrible with women and teach them how to be great with women. And we both do it in different ways. There's always going to be friction because we've got our passions, what we believe in. But I just feel very strongly about taking authentic self, taking in a game and calling it's just another technique. It's just another tool. My stance is, no, it's not a technique. It's not a tool. It's highly necessary. It's the fundamental base. It is the baseline which we need for the techniques to come from. If that was in agreement, then there'd be a synergy. I'd fall in alignment with you. But I don't think that's something we're going to. I don't think that's something we're going to agree on.
Dean, it looks like Dean posted in the comments. I'm guessing this is Dean, Succeed in Dating. He said, "You are a more perfect PUA when you know you can attract women effortlessly." Look, effortless game, frictionless game is an ideal state. It is. When you're in a good state of mind, Mushin, no mind, you keep talking about, and everything is flowing. You're not thinking about systems or everything. Like, it's all integrated. You're going to get better results. And if you ride that wave, your results will compound and magnify, certainly, right? But you should also be able to do it when you're not perfectly integrated. There are a lot of clunky moments in the game. It's not always frictionless and perfect. In fact, some of the best relationships that I've ever had in my life, I was not feeling perfectly confident. I was not expressing my authentic self the whole time. I was nervous. I was thinking about, what can I do and say here? I would never have experienced some of these wonderful people had I not dealt with some imperfection. So this idea of perfect, flawless, effortless, fully integrated game, it's an ideal we can strive for. When it happens, we can enjoy it and bask in it. But there's a saying in sales: if you want to be there for the good times, you got to show up every time. And I take that to mean, for the game, you're not going to always feel good. You're not going to always be in a flow state. You can still go out there and take action. And you may find some of those nights you thought you weren't fully integrated, you met an awesome chick. And you never would have met her had you not gone against your current emotional state. So you go out, you run your game, express yourself. When those moments of flow and seamlessness are there, enjoy it. But it's not always going to be there. That's been my experience. If you found a way to live your life completely integrated and feel seamless and connected to everything around you 100% of the time, I applaud you. Teach me, please, master, but I haven't gotten there yet.
Not 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not sat here in that kind of embodied state forever. It's not like that. It's just I have access to it a lot more. It just comes on.
Fair,
I can get that. I can find my way home. And
yes.
I can teach guys how to do that rapidly, and that's what I teach.
I agree with you. You can, the more you get into state, almost the more susceptible you are to it. Once you know and you've experienced it, you know the process to get there. I actually have some rules around getting into state. For example, don't pay attention to it, right? A watch pot never boils. Instead of thinking, I got to get myself in state, oftentimes I just start going through the motions and state just sneaks up on me, right? So
I know, I can tell. Like I said, when I speak to someone, I know you've got game. I can feel it. I can feel your passion. I know that you know what you're talking about. I know it. I fucking love what you do. So I'm not, don't, with this kind of debate, don't think that I'm going against what it is that you're saying. I'm just collaborating with you, talking from a different angle, which is kind of nuanced. And I do find it hard to explain, especially like this is my first debate. So this has taught me a lot. So I'm going to go and think, how could I have explained that better? But yeah, I don't want you to think that I don't.
Explaining the game is very challenging, guys. They try to simplify it. They try to simplify and say, oh, it all boils down to charisma, or it all boils down to this. It all boils down to that. We're taking a complex, dynamic, fluctuating human thing and trying to distill it into the written language. We're trying to teach it. We're trying to demonstrate it. We're trying to show it. We're trying to, express it. It is not easy. If it was easy to teach, we wouldn't have all these people suffering, men and women alike. A lot of women out there that are suffering as well, that don't understand the game, or if we want to not call it the game, that don't express how to that don't understand how to express their authentic self. So no, I think you did. I think you did good, Romeo. I think you did good, man, for your first
No,
time.
man, it's
I
been
think
great. And also, like, when I say the words like sociopathic, it's like, I'm not talking about like the evil side, like the scary sociopathic person. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about little parts of it. I don't think for one second that you teach guys how to become sociopathic. I think you're trying to help guys out of suffering. You're trying to teach guys how to be the best versions of themselves to attract women. I fully get that. I 100% get that. And I think that's what you're pushing them towards. I've just found a way of doing it where I can get pretty rapid results pretty quickly. And for me, I wish I could have been my coach back in the day.
You have brought up some very real pitfalls of guys that go too deep into the technical side of the game, for sure. These are very real pitfalls. And guys can actually become sociopathic. Let's be real. One pitfall is you're sort of activating a part of the brain that's dysregulated from your mindset and emotional state. That's one sort of innocent pitfall, damaging nonetheless. But some guys actually get into this and they do become sociopathic. They feel kicked around by women, and now they learn this cheat code, and now I'm going to get back at everyone. They start getting these huge egos. Kieren, I noticed this quote you brought up here. You won't always be in a flow state, but you've got to understand. Which was the one you had before?
Who, me?
Someone said all these lines, tips, and techniques is simping. Okay. Can I address that real quick? Do you want to discuss this with me, perhaps? Erik, can you teach how to get a woman? But Erik can teach you how to get a woman, but he can't teach you how to have the mindset for a woman to get you. That was actually one of my shreds from my youth. I talk about this in my book, okay? I was given a piece of advice that said, there are the guys that are looking for girls, and there are the guys the girls are looking for. And you want to be one of the guys the girls are looking for. There's a few different ways to interpret that. There's becoming a high value dude who focuses on himself, has self-agency, is very integrated, expresses his authentic self, as Romeo said, right? And then there's the actual tactical, technical takeaway from that, which is what my young, undeveloped brain did in my teens was, oh, okay, so when I'm in a social situation, I shouldn't pay so much attention to the woman. I should get her paying attention to me. I want to be one of the guys the girls are looking for. So I understood the macro level lesson that he was giving me. He was trying to get me to chill out a bit. Hey, dude, don't be so focused on girls. Be one of the guys the girls are looking for, right? I understood that macro level lesson, but I also took it down to the micro level. So when I was in social situations, I didn't always put the spotlight on the girl I wanted. I socialized with people around me. I was really rooted in my own energy and, expressing myself to other people. But I did it with a little angle, with a little intention of attracting attention from a girl across the way. It taught me indirect game, right? But all of these lines and techniques is simping. If a guy is over reliant on techniques and lines and he has no sense of self and he's just throwing lines out there because he needs to get a girl and he's desperate to get a girl, of course, that's simping, right? Thank you, but that's not what I'm teaching. I appreciate some of these comments here, though.
All right, so
Cool.
I'm thinking this might be a good place to end the debate. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to state?
No, I think I personally feel right now it's a good place to end. I feel good. I feel good in my body. I think it's been amazing. I've enjoyed it big time. So yeah.
Romeo, can I make one suggestion to you, brother?
Yes.
And you give me a suggestion too. How about that? To make it fair, you're going to give me a suggestion. I'm going to give you a suggestion. I believe that there is a way to incorporate tactics and techniques into your coaching and make it honest and authentic. And I want to challenge you something. Of course, there's a little self-promotion angle here, all right? I want you to read my book, okay? If you do not believe in incorporating tactics, techniques, and systems into game, I would bet after reading my book, you'll say, you know what? I think a lot of tactics, techniques, and so forth are bullshit, but there is one book that I believe will teach you how to do it in a more authentic way. It's not as good as my energy game. It's not as good as my authentic self-expression game. But if you're going to learn the tactical, technical side of game, it's right fucking here. The Vortex of Love, how to get a woman to fall in love with you. And it's days away from being ready.
I can assure you that I was going to buy that book. You're one of the pioneers. You're Mystery's wingman. I respect
He's
you,
older
man.
than me,
Of
though.
course-
Mystery.
of course we're
I
gonna
don't
read
like
the
to
book.
consider myself a pioneer. I like to think I'm in my prime, brother. Come on, Mystery's 54. I'm 42, man. I got many more years of teaching this stuff. Okay, I appreciate it. I do have some history in this, but I'm new school, man. This is the new shit right here. This
is the
isn't the
new
old
stuff.
shit. This
I'm
is the
gonna
new
read it, bro.
shit.
I'm gonna buy that book 100%.
All right.
We could do another video about that.
Yes.
We could have another
Let's
chat about
Let's
the
do a
book.
video about like when we read it and what our thoughts.
Actually, I've got a question for both of you before you go. This is just something that's popped into my head. So I had a realization about let's call it the pickup world, for lack of a better phrase. I've had this realization in the past couple of years, which is basically this. The dating / pickup world for men, it's all kind of centered around the fact of showing average men how to convince women to be into them, essentially. And like, there's a lot of inbuilt assumptions that are based on the fact that you're just an average guy and you only ever will be. And I'd like to know what your thoughts are about that. So like, for instance, let's say like Michael Sartain, who isn't really a pickup guy at all, but his whole thing is like nuclear social proof, right? Being like the high value man, and like women that naturally gravitate to you because you already have the things that they want. But then if you look at this scene here, there seems to be like an unspoken assumption of you're an average man and you only ever will be an average man as well. So you're probably not very good looking, and you're probably never going to go to the gym and like work out much or what have you. There's probably not much amazing going on in your life. And based on that, we are going to show you how to work within all of your limitations to attract women. Thoughts? Like, what do you guys think?
Romeo, you want me to take that first?
Yes,
Go ahead,
please.
go ahead.
Yeah, because you'll help me answer it. So you take it first. Thank you.
So let me see if I understand your question, Kieren. So you're saying that there's an assumption that the guys that need help in this area of life are average, and coaches operate from that frame of this guy's just an average dude, so I'm going to teach him how to operate within his averageness.
Well, more or less. Like, for instance, for years it was like, oh, looks don't matter, your body doesn't matter, your body doesn't matter. And it's like, for the most part, that is true. As in, to me, like a man's physique is probably 10, maximum of 15% of what he's got going through. But I would hear people say that so much that really there's an unspoken agreement, which is, I don't think I have what it takes to get a good body. And I don't think you have what it takes to get a good body.
Here's what I'll say to that, okay? If a guy doesn't think he can succeed, he probably won't, okay? Because there's a saying that if you believe you can achieve something, you still might not be able to. But if you don't believe you can achieve something, you probably won't. So I absolutely want a guy to believe that change is possible, but I don't bullshit him. I don't say, hey, man, I'm going to have you hooking up with models and you're going to have a harem of 25-year-olds. He's a 44-year-old dude who's not socially integrated. He's spent all his life behind computers. I'm not going to turn you into a Casanova in one weekend. It can happen, but it's not the norm, right? So, but change and improvement are absolutely possible. So I need a guy to believe that he can achieve something. And if he wants to set lofty goals, I'm all for it. If his goals are too lofty, I might chop him down just a little bit, right? But look, you want to set lofty ass goals. You want to have mid-range goals, whatever your goals are. Let's get you into a state of believing that you can achieve them. And now let's backward engineer what it's going to take to actually get them. So belief that change is possible is absolutely, I don't want to say it's required, because if you do all the necessary things, even if you don't believe in yourself, you still might achieve it, but it's highly unlikely that you're going to do all the right things. Right? If you believe it's possible, you'll take the right actions. You don't believe it's possible.
I think you need to believe it's possible to take action, though.
You have to believe it's possible. Exactly. It's very unlikely that you're going to achieve what you want with no belief. Highly unlikely.
Anyway, yeah, Romeo?
I mean, it's something that doesn't sit with me with that. It doesn't feel right. Like someone, basically you're saying like you're average, so design your life around being average. Let's make
I'm not saying that's my belief. I'm saying that's an unspoken assumption I hear in the pickup industry. Yeah.
Yeah, it it completely goes against everything that I teach.
Some guys are okay with being average. Some guys don't want to get really good at this. They just want a girlfriend and they want to be themselves. You can find a girl that way too.
It all depends what you mean by average. It's like the trouble is, I think the deeper you go down this rabbit hole, when you see someone, you just see potential. You just see unlimited potential. I can see any guy. I can see that guy's potential. So I can't see a guy as average, a guy or a woman, because I feel it in myself. I can feel myself. So when I look at you guys, I can see your potential. I can feel it. So how could I ever look at someone as average? I can't do that. So that's where it would fit. So for me, I just don't speak that language. So I'd be like, okay, that works for you. Great. But yeah, that's how I feel about that when I hear you say that.
Kieren, in the comments real quick, we have someone who says, bro, you've been saying your book's coming out for months. It's still not out. I literally hit publish on Amazon yesterday. Amazon takes 24 to 72 hours for it to show up. It's literally days away from being available on Amazon. So, dude, the nightmare that I went through to get this done was insane. The cover design, the formatting. I mean, I made this thing like, this is... The amount of work that went into getting it ready for distribution was almost as much as it took to write the fucking book. Writing the book was definitely the hardest part. Getting it ready for distribution is literally days away from being available on Amazon. I appreciate you calling me out for that, because I have been saying for longer than a few months, man. It's been almost a year that I've been saying it's coming out. So it's been a process.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess we can end it there then. So thank you for your time, gentlemen. Thank you for the spirited, yet respectful debate or collaboration, even, if you will. Romeo, if you do want to read his book, and then we could come back and do, another video about that, I'd be up for that.
Yeah, I'm 100% going to read your book, man.
It will be available in the UK. It'll be available in a bunch of European countries, including the UK. It'll be available. So
I'll read it and I'll recommend it, bro. Because there are people I speak to all the time. They love the game. They love the science of it. They love this stuff. So it's kind of like, I'm not going to ram something down their throat. So there is that. I'm not going to turn around and deny pickup artistry and the techniques.
The Venusian arts.
The Venusian.
The arts of love.
Yeah.
Pickup. I like to call myself a dating coach, a Venusian artist, and I am Mystery's wingman, a Blaze. So I kind of have to also, I guess I'm kind of sort of a pickup artist too, but I don't like the term,
You're a pickup artist, mate. That's what you are. Look, I'm gonna go and get some food, guys. Honestly, nice. Kieren, thanks for sorting this out. I really appreciate it. And Erik,
no worries. I appreciate you guys too, man. So thank you for being here.
Good debate.
Enjoy it.
Right.
Take care.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Take care.
See ya.